The Charity Drive 3. 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 Charity drive.
Welcome one, welcome all to the Charity Drive 3. This is something that we've been looking forward to for quite some time. A 3-hour endurance race around the Circuit du Spa-Francorchamps, raising money for wheelchairs for kids. If you're in our Twitch stream, all you got to do is scroll down a little and there will be a link to donate to the charity. The more money we raise, the more kids we can help through Wheelchairs for Kids, who builds wheelchairs for kids, obviously, and ships the wheelchairs to them for free. Bringing you the commentary tonight is myself, Reese Gardner. You might know me better as Southpaw Racer on YouTube and Twitch. And we also have Samuel Dieboldter on cameras and handling the stream for us, making everything happen behind the scenes. We're currently in the final stages of qualifying at the moment, just before we have the GT3 only section of the qualifying session to come, and we'll be able to set our final times for the grid of this race. And of course, this is the third running of the Charity Drive. Really awesome to see that there's plenty of sim racing events out there running for charity. So, quick explanation of the class structure and how this event is going to be run. Essentially, it is just a 3-hour race, which is multi-class. We have LMP1, which is only populated by a couple of cars, and they are going to have to race their way around some sizable fields of GT3 and TCR machinery. So, majority of drivers have set their times for the time being, and the LMP1s are just out there at the moment, making sure that they've got their final times in. That's Grosjean bringing the number 1 Porsche 919 into the pits. The LMP1 class, of course, only using the Porsche 919, and as you can see, there's quite a speed differential as the other car of Grosjean was RGB Parrot driving the number 1 car, the number 19 driven by Grosjean, just making their way past one of the TCR runners on their way up the Eau Rouge Raidillon section. Sorry, it's a GT3. That won't be the first time I make a mistake tonight, and I apologize in advance for that. One of the Mercedes, Sanil, who currently, if my timing is correct, is one of the faster GT3s out there. So, we'll see how things go towards the last couple of minutes of open qualifying. Of course, after the 20-minute mark passes, we will see that everybody else will jump into the pits and stay there until the GT3s have finished all of their lap times. We do have a really lovely combination of GT3s out there. We do have Mercedes, obviously. We've also got BMW represented. And you see that little mini LMP looking thing in between these two Porsches? If you're wondering what the heck that is, it's a Radical RXC Turbo GT3, which is really awesome to see. A very wide variety of GT3 machinery out in this event. We've also got the Alfa Romeo 4C there as well. We've also got the Glickenhaus GT3 represented as well. So out comes the number 19 LMP1 out of the final corner to pass said Alfa Romeo 4C, and makes his way past them quite nicely on the way into La Source. And you will notice that this is the 2022 version of Spa-Francorchamps, so we do have the gravel traps in place at the exit of La Source. We have the extended runoff here at the top of Raidillon, and we also have gravel traps in effect around multiple corners of the course. So the drivers will have to be careful to keep it on the track in this multi-class race. And of course there are manual safety cars as well. So the drivers will have to keep their noses clean, and they'll have to work their strategies to include any kind of permutation that a safety car or 3 will bring. Much apart from that, we also have live stewarding as well. We've got a dedicated team of stewards policing the racing, making sure that no one does anything untoward. So all up, this is looking like it will be a spick and span event. And I can't wait to see who comes out on top. Something important to note as well is that the LMP1 class are paid entries. Every other class has been free to enter, but we do encourage everyone to make a donation to Wheelchairs for Kids. Once again, on the Twitch stream page, just scroll down a little and you will see the donation link. So it lasts 19 minutes of the session. And we'll see the serious lap times really being set here for the GT3 class. Got a Porsche out on track as well, 911. And it looks like we've just seen the third LMP1 of our session bring up their time and put themselves third fastest. Bit of a field spread in the LMP1 class at the moment. 54.9 for the number 19 of Grosjean. And 1 minute 57.6 for RGB Parrot's number 19 car. But Nathan Vaughan, the car of Nathan Vaughan, is currently in third place, 1 minute 58.977. That is your field spread for the LMP2 class. I've got to say, it's fantastic to see the amount of people that have turned up for this. And speaking of people driving these cars, there's also no particular rules on driving time either. It's a 3-hour race, which is possible for people to do solo, and we've had quite a few teams that are deciding to drive solo, just one driver in the car for the whole 3 hours, but some teams have decided to put 2 drivers in. We've also seen 1 or 2 teams elect to put 3 drivers in. Have to say, that will be quite interesting to see with how things work out over the course of the race. We have certainly seen quite a bit of support in the Twitch chat as well. Fantastic to see that we've got 29 people watching at the moment, and plenty of input from people now. Yes, of course, TCR not allowed to drive at the moment. They've already had their opportunity to put laps in. So we'll wait and see how the TCR field works out when we go to the grid in about 16 minutes time. Current GT3 out on the track. The orange BMW of Cedric Niehuys. Brilliant to see the wide variety of GT3 machinery on offer here. The GT3 will be driven by Cedric Niehuys and Alexis Schnitzbaumer. Or Schnitzbaumer, my apologies. And coming through the bus stop chicane now, they will come and we'll see what they can do. Oh, actually, it looks like they're going to be backing off at the end of that lap and letting the Porsche through. That's the one in 5th place in class, 4th place in class at the moment. Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan sharing this brilliant pink machine. Let's see how they go up La Source. Is there going to be a lift? Yes, a slight lift, and downshift into 5th gear for that one. Very difficult corner to get right, Arouge and Radillon. It's one of the most feared complexes in the world for a reason, and TCRs are able to take it flat out by virtue of their lack of straight line speed. The LMP1s certainly take it flat out without a doubt, but in GT3, also depending on the car you're driving because they all have different characteristics, you will see, I think, most of the GT3s lifting on the way into these corners. Or those corners, rather. Turns 3 and 4. What a brilliant circuit here at Spa being demonstrated as we ride on board with the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan car coming into Pouhon. One of the best corners on the track, in my opinion. Downhill, sweeping, double apex left-hander. And keeping it within track limits. From the cockpit, this course is incredibly difficult to find your way around when you're first learning it. A lot of the corners are blind. And oh dear, looks like a slight mess up there on the way out of Fagnes. Just caught the gravel, so doesn't look like this lap is going to be a fast one for the current 4th place car in class. Meanwhile, we have a bit of a chain of cars making their way through Fagnes and Stavelot at the moment. Multi-Hinch and P in the Glickenhaus, they've just let through the 2 LMP1s. Just getting their way up to speed. Grosjean and RGB Parrot up ahead, coming into Blanchimont. You just see them flick through the frame there. Looks like they are drafting each other. Try and increase their speed down the straights. Either that or they're getting some final practice in for how they're going to go about the race. And looks like they're both coming into the pits now. Either that or they're just letting these GT3s through to get on with their laps. It's actually something that you see not that often, to be completely honest. LMPs lifting off to make way for GT3s, but they're going up the inside of them at La Source anyway. Are we aware that this is a qualifying session, guys? Interesting to see so much jostling on track when the goal is to set the fastest lap time possible. Of course, the LMP1s are allowed to drive through the whole session. And of course, that can create some trouble. The Radical RXC just up ahead of them there. That is very interesting car indeed. I was always quite intrigued by the Radical GT3. It's not the kind of car you typically expect to be made into a GT3 machine. But regardless, it still represents itself very well. So just under 12 minutes to go in the qualifying session now as Limpet Arch and DC Racing sharing this car. They make their way out of Pouhon. And, oh dear, on the way into Fagnes, it seems that the rear end is gone on them. That's a big shame there. That is lap over, and it looks like the same for one of the Audis as well. Very hard braking zone into Fagnes. And it's definitely something you need to be prepared for. If you run your brake bias a little too far to the rear, then the rear end will swing around on you, and there will be nothing you can do about it. So the Radical and the Audi end up getting going, which is good to see. Most cars in the pits now as we come to the final 10 minutes of this qualifying session, just entering 11 minutes to go. And we'll see what kind of times come in here towards the end. Radical makes way for Radical at the bus stop chicane. Milan and Luca sharing the car up ahead, the bright blue machine. See what kind of lap time they can set. The Limpet Arch DC Racing car is currently the last, it seems, of the GT3s that have set times, so they'll definitely be looking forward to this little helping of slipstream down the Kemmel Straight. They've also got another car in front of them here, which might make things a little complicated as they make their way through the twisty section of the lap. Hard on the brakes into Lacombe, and then out through Malmedy. Very challenging corner to get right, but you can use all of that curb. Sometimes you won't want to, though, because it might unsettle the car, and you could definitely late apex it here at Bruxelles. But it seems Radical number 1 is having trouble with an Audi here, and that's going to potentially open the door for the Limpet Arch and DC Racing car to make a run on them here at Pouhon. Let's take it easy now. Once again, this is the kind of situation you don't really want to get into in a qualifying run. It's supposed to be you versus the track, and when there's another car, sometimes a slower car, impeding your progress, that can make things quite frustrating for you. Regardless, they've cleared the Audi. And now we wait to see if they can get a couple more laps in, because there isn't much time for it. In these cars, the GT3s, Spa is completed in about 2 minutes and 17 or 18 seconds on average, depending on your level of talent and what car you are driving. So with 8 minutes left in the session, really they only have 3 full laps left to set their actual times here. 5th gear, then 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, going all the way down to 1st gear to get the max acceleration out of the corner. The GT3s, of course, have traction control and ABS at their disposal. We're going to move to Sunil here in the Mercedes. Very striking livery here. He's looking quite quick here on the way into Kemmel and absolutely smashing down through the gears, but he's overcooked it, unfortunately, into the Lacombe chicane. So that would likely have invalidated the lap there for Sunil. Big shame there. It seems that the only car really that can dethrone the Cedric Niehuys and Alexis entry, we switch to the Mika and Seth driven BMW, and there's no missing this car. On the way into Pouhon once again. The old BMW Z4 GT3, of course, not active in real-life GT3 competition anymore. It's been superseded by the M4. But it's nice to see this car making its way around a racetrack again. I always had a soft spot for the Z4 GT3 with its incredibly wide flared wheel arches. It's looking like a quick lap here for the Mika Seth entry. See if they can improve on their 2-minute 20.923 that they currently have. And just up ahead of them, it looks like Sunil pulled over and has now abandoned that lap. We'll see if he has time to get one more lap in before the end of the session. On board through Blanchimont, and it's flat out in all cars here for the most part. The GT3s definitely slightly offline in the braking zone. There's a bit of a narrow turn in there. We'll have lost some time from that. But out of the bus stop they come, and that is going to be an improvement, quite an improvement of 0.4, 2-minute 20.518, and they move a position up over Rexon in one of the other Radical GT3s there. So they should be very happy with that lap. Still got 5 minutes left in the session, and looks like Sunil has made his way back out onto the circuit, so he's going to have one last gasp here to try and get GT3 pole position. But we focus on one of the Audis, the 118 here, coming through Blanchimont. And then through into the bus stop chicane. This is the Cobby and Rokas Gris entry. Out of the bus stop chicane they come. Very tight sort of chicane slash double hairpin to end the lap. And no improvement on that lap. We'll see how they go on this one. They got one of the Porsches right up behind them, as well as one of the Radicals too. So this could get ugly here for the Cobby and Rokas Gris entry. Be gentle here. Right up on the bumper as they come into Rouge and Raidillon. Little bit of a lift there, and he's almost had to make way for the Porsche, but they had to back out of it themselves. Had a big whoopsie moment of oversteer. Well then, into Lecombe once again. We'll see if the Cobby and Rokas Gris Audi ends up working things out here. And it's looking like, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That is a big spin there that's happened for the 118 Audi. And that looks like it's going to be the end of their qualifying session. We flick back to Sunil, who has a bit of a mess up ahead of him. Alfa Romeo trailing Ferrari there up ahead. Unfortunate to see that there have been some instances of contact here in the qualifying session. But remember, it's a 3-hour race, and as long as you keep your nose clean, you will likely get a result. So, 39.7 seconds is the first sector time for Sunil. Oh, did he have to make way for someone there at the exit of Malmedy? Potentially. But now he's dealing with traffic. And if I'm not mistaken, it's a hard cut to the end of qualifying sessions in Assetto Corsa, so it'll be unlikely in my mind that he'll be able to get another lap in here before the session ends. 2.5 minutes or thereabouts remaining here as they are up behind the Alfa Romeo. I am being informed that usually there is a session, a sort of extra time at the end of the session for people to complete their laps. Back when I raced on Assetto Corsa regularly, I must have been racing in servers where there was a hard cut to the end of qualifying. So remains to be seen if he's able to complete this final lap, if it'll meet his standards. The Spitzlem and Drunk Weatherman Alfa Romeo up ahead of him, giving him a nice draft here on the run up to Blanchimont. Keep the foot pinned and keep it within the track limits, or near enough, and you're good. To the bus stop he comes, and that's very hard on the brakes there. Nearly cleaned up the Alfa Romeo, but setting up a late apex for the bus stop chicane. Will Sunil be able to get this done? No. Unfortunately, that is not an improvement there on that lap, so he has one more chance here, but you can see that he is pushing much harder in the braking zones than the Spitzlem and Drunk Weatherman car up ahead of him, so that's probably costing him a bit of time there. So, now we are in the final 70 seconds of this qualifying session. Oh, the Alfa Romeo loses it at the top of a Rouge and Raidillon. Fortunately, far enough off the racetrack that Sunil didn't have to worry about it. Early apex here for Lecombe. Will Sunil be able to get it done? Still second place in the GT3 class. And the amount of time that he needs to make up is close to a second. So that is almost insurmountable, I think, with the gap being what it is at the moment. just has to nail every single apex, every single braking zone, turning point, throttle application. And Spa is a track where, because of the high speeds and the long straights, you get the exit of a corner wrong, it is going to affect you for almost half the lap. I'm counting only 6 cars out on track at the moment. And the checkered flag flies in the session. We now reach overtime, and Sunil will be able to finish this lap. We'll see what kind of speeds he reaches on the way up to Blanchimont. Still keeping it just over 250 kilometers an hour at the apex of Blanchimont. What a fearsome and fast corner that is. Into the bus stop chicane, still pushing quite hard on the way in. And across the line, Sunil will come. Will this be an improvement? Again, no, it seems not. So, that's going to be Sunil's grid position set. It's still going to be a front row in the GT3 class, which is awesome to see. Limpet Arch, meanwhile, the Radical, coming through Blanchimont now. Next car to come to the line in the GT3 class, 219.790, their fastest lap. Oh no, the reason you don't see them is because that's where they are. Completely lost it in the braking zone. And that is the end of their qualifying run. Last few cars are going to be coming across the line now. From what I can see, still no improvements. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, everyone's pushing so hard at the end of the qualifying session that it's almost impossible to be able to get to the end of the lap cleanly, and that's the Soggy Bread and Arthur entry. The Porsche GT3 losing it out of Blanchimont and making their way to the bus stop and deciding, no, we will call it a day for the qualifying session for now. Well, Audi number 118 has finished their qualifying session for sure, and into the wall down the Kemmel Straight they will go. And if I'm not mistaken, that is the end of the qualifying session. We'll go into a warm-up session very shortly for drivers to take a short break, get themselves into race mode, and then we will bring you the full 3-hour race. It's going to be fantastic to see here. Around about 20 cars making their race start here. Who will come out on top? It's going to be fantastic to see. Well, now what's going to happen is the drivers will make sure that they have their controls and all that in order, and they'll be able to work their way behind the pace car. This is going to be a fun one. And you'll see also the SC board up there, just denoting that the safety car is currently out, or we're under safety car conditions. We'll keep our eyes peeled here. We've got drivers moving away now, getting ready for the start of this race. The safety car moves to the front of the field. Of course, the safety car being a Nissan GTR. Good to see that car still active active in Assetto Corsa. I remember I put in so much time on the GT3 version of that car when it first came out. Of course, Misty is the one driving the Nissan GTR safety car, which, and Misty, I believe, made an appearance in the Twitch chat earlier. Hello to everyone who has sent their messages so far. Really awesome to see you all here and enjoying the start of what should be an excellent race here. And I'm hearing that
people got kicked because some weird lag spike, so I'm going to restart it. Sorry.
Okay. The session is going to be restarted. Unfortunately, it seems that there has been an issue server side, so we will be beginning that again. Hopefully things go off a little more smoothly this time. Indeed, Big T 1990, that is a transit van. For those of us who are involved in the broadcasting of this event, we are assigned Ford Transits to join the server with, and we just exit back to the pits when we are no longer needed. So we'll be able to be present in the server and bring you this action. So we wait now for the safety car to make its way out of the pits, of course, driven by Misty once again. And we should see that Nissan emerge on the other side of the pits right now. And there we go. Misty's going to be pulling this one over. And now the field starts up and brings their way to the rear of that Nissan GTR. So our 3 LMP cars should be the first here to make their way to it. The Grosjean car and RGB Parrot just behind him in those beautiful looking machines. Grosjean Parrot Racing definitely looking like the team to beat for overall honours here, and the emergent VR encounter car behind them of Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go will definitely have their work cut out for them with that two-pronged attack at the front. The rest of the field has made their way to the back as well. Looks like a bit of a slow start, I think, for a few of our GT3 runners who are now trying their best to sort themselves out. And they won't want to be going too fast here at the top of Raidillon because the field is rapidly slowing down. There's a big check up there. Got to take good care, everybody. Oh dear. I'm wondering if is that Sunil? It was Sunil having a little bit of an off-track excursion. As everyone gets themselves sorted out, and I believe that little off-track excursion was just them sorting out the GT3 starting order. Now the Nihuis car driven by Nihuis and Schnitzelbaumer assumes their position at the front of the GT3 field. So at the end of these formation laps, we'll see the safety car pull into the pits. The classes will give each other a bit of space, and then we'll be able to get things going for the first bit of this race. And it's going to be a long one and a tough one. 3 hours of racing coming up. A reminder, everybody watching, This is a race for charity, and we do have top donations on the screen as well, so we'll notify you when we have these big donations come in. Just scroll down on the Twitch stream and click the link to donate. Wheelchairs for Kids, 100% non-profit organization, manufactures wheelchairs for underprivileged children, and also ships the wheelchairs to them for free. Every little bit of money you donate helps. It will certainly be appreciated by the people at Wheelchairs for Kids. So the Porsche 919s up at the front of the field, going through their final motions here to get some heat into their tyres. Of course, the LMP1s have the distinction of being part-time all-wheel drive, with the hybrid motor deploying power to both the front and rear wheels, and close to 1,000 horsepower on tap at the very exits of the corners. There's only a limited amount you can use per lap, and a limited amount you can use stored in the battery, so that's something that the LMP1 drivers are going to have to manage. The safety car is pulling away from the field now, and they have to maintain 101 kilometers per hour. This is the point at which the LMP1 field should be forming up right about now to be able to take the start. It seems that Grosjean is putting in a final few moments of tyre warming, mounting the curbs at the bus stop chicane, and hard on the power. The LMP1 field, it seems, is green, and we are away. The Nyquist and Schnitzelbaumer entry in GT3 leads the GT3 field away. They are followed by Sunil and the Limpet Arch DC Racing Radical. That's your top three in GT3, and in TCR, which has just taken their own green flag, the Samuel McGill Audi is the one leading the way, just ahead of the Lincoln Co, and it seems one of the Peugeots as well. So all of our fields are away. We haven't seen any big incidents just yet, and as you can see on the map, the LMP1 field, those three cars have already gained massively on the GT3 and TCR fields, which seem to have started pretty close together. Checking in with the LMP1s. Grosjean leading the way, RGB Parrot in second, so a solid 1-2 for the Grosjean Parrot Racing entries there. But it seems that the car of Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go is keeping very good pace with them, not allowing them to get away. So on one lap pace, it seems that that Grosjean had the advantage, but definitely once they're in race conditions, things work out a little differently. Here's a battle in GT3. It is Radical versus Audi. Fantastic kind of battle to see here. The Kobe and Lucas Gris Audi with Milan and Luca just in front of them, and the battle for the lead in TCR is absolutely heating up. This is fantastic, really awesome racing, very close racing at the start of a 3-hour race. Oh no, that's one of the Alfa Romeos in GT3 that was sprawled across the track there, and they both had to take avoiding action. That is not what you want to see. Fortunately, it seems people have managed to keep themselves out of trouble there. Have a look at this as well, side by side, further back in the TCR field, the number 54 Hyundai making their way around one of the Peugeots, and oh dear, that is way out of bounds there. Got to be careful. Elizabeth Frazier and Sven Versteeg battling together there. Frazier is in the Peugeot, and Versteeg, the car on screen currently, in the Hyundai i30N. So Vigo Ketelar still really harassing the back of the Samuel McGill and Harry Hazard 9 Audi as they make their way through Eau Rouge and Radillon once again. I love this view from the side bumper of the Lincoln Co. TCR machine. It seems that it's the straights where the Audi has the advantage. They're having to deal with some GT3 traffic as well. Looks like it's the Spitzlem and Drunk Weatherman Alfa Romeo there. Seems that was the car, I believe, was sprawled across the track out of Fagnes, unless I am very much mistaken, which it's entirely possible I am. Big lock up there for Ketelar, but manages to keep pace with the GT3 through the corners here. But the straights are where the GT3 cars will have the advantage. Massive power. Around about 450 to 500 horsepower GT3s produced. TCRs, meanwhile, they run about 350 horsepower going through the front wheels. And that tells you something about how difficult those cars can be to drive, though they are one of the easier car classes to drive in sim racing. You got to manage that power, you got to make the tyres last. Jumping to the GT3 battle here. It is Ferrari versus Glickenhaus versus BMW here. And it looks like the fast-starting Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer car has fallen behind these two. Malte Hinch and Pai making their way into La Source with Krzysztof Cisielski in the Ferrari up ahead of them. And that is for third place in the GT3 class. That Ferrari currently in P3, and the battle now, it seems, is Glickenhaus versus BMW for P4. Malte Hinch versus the Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer entry. Let's see what kind of speed the BMW Z4 has over the Glickenhaus here. A little bit less of a front profile for the Glickenhaus and a bit less frontal area as well, which should result in a bit less drag than the BMW, but as we've seen, there's plenty of ways for GT3's balance of performance to be managed, and these cars are very closely matched. Really awesome to see. I apologize if you're hearing a cat meow in the background. My boy Felix deciding to make a slight appearance here, as it is Radical versus Porsche, just coming out of the former no-name corner in Jackie X, and now into Pouhon. This is the GT3 lead you are looking at the moment. Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan are the ones leading the way, with the Limpet Arch and DC Racing. Radical just behind them. Running the revs high and definitely making the rear end dance through those fast corners is the Radical. Let's see what they can do with a little slipstream assistance or assistance from a helping of oversteer for the Porsche. And that is the change for the GT3 lead right there. Radical leads the way. Incredible stuff. But be gentle. The Porsche makes their way back past on the way down the straight. That is quite interesting to see there. Looking at the, oh, easy, oh, goodness gracious. Very late on the brakes there was the Limpet Arch and DC Racing car. Nearly cleaned up Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan, but they've managed to keep their noses clean, and it looks like there might be a bit of a comeback here from the Porsche. Has a bit of a look coming into La Source, but ultimately thinks better of it. Loses out a bit on the exit. Battle's still on between the Hinch and Niehuis entered cars. So let's see what kind of slipstream the BMW Z4 can pick up here. Coming out of Eau Rouge and Radillon. Slightly wider turn into the corner at the bottom of the hill. And then, oh, okay. Seems a little bit of internet messing around there. The BMW briefly in front and trying under brakes here at Lacombe. Looks like the Glickenhaus has overshot, and they just about make contact. This is very close for the start of a 3-hour race. The BMW is not giving up, neither is the Glickenhaus. Side by side on the way into Bruxelles. This is giving a huge advantage to the Mika and Seth BMW just behind. All that side by side running has cost those guys about, what is it, half a second in terms of time? And unfortunately, the Mika Seth entry running wide at Jackie X corner is not going to help their case to make themselves a part of this battle. But Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer now ahead of Hinch and Pai. So let's see what kind of progress they can make further forward. TCR is still on as well. Plenty of stuff happening here. The Samuel McGill and Harry has a 9. Audi still leads the way, but we look back a little further. It seems that Sven Versteeg is right behind the second place car of Viggo Ketelaar. So let's see what he can do. Obviously, there have been either a few run-ins with traffic or some corner taking troubles that have put that car back. And is that it looks like the LMP1s have started lapping drivers now. So in the midst of all of that, you can probably see it on the map as well. The third place overall car, the Vaughan and Go machine, has lost a lot of time to the Grosjean Parrot racing cars, who are still very close together on track. They are managing this race very well here up at the front, coming into the bus stop chicane. 2 hours and 50 minutes remaining in the race, so we've just about completed the first 10 minutes of this event, and we see as they make their way past the traffic how difficult it can be to sight yourself here at Spa. They trade positions. Interesting to see there. Grosjean getting back into the lead there with RGB Parrot following. I'm not too sure what their deal is, what they're trying to do. I think maybe part of it could be just having fun. Part of it could just be they're working together to save fuel and to make sure that they prolong their stints a little bit and execute this race really well. Meanwhile, this is the GT3 lead once again. Radical still leads the way. Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan and the Porsche behind, and just behind them you see in the frame the battle for third and fourth. Jasilski and Niehuis paired with Schnitzelbaumer. That is your top 4 in GT3 right there. Awesome battles going on, and plenty of tactics going on as well. I just saw the Jasilski Ferrari take a narrow line into Fagnier, presumably to defend against the Niehuis Schnitzelbaumer BMW, but the car was not very close, so they've just ended up costing themselves some time, and the Radical getting a very good exit in the lead out of the Paul Frere curve and Stavelot. Looks like a bit of a slipstream coming on here for the BMW in fourth, and the Porsche not harassing the Radical all that much, and the LMP1 leaders are just coming through now. Take it easy, everybody. Don't want anything going wrong here. That was a little bit awkward there for RGB Parrot, and oh no! The LMP1's going through has completely changed the face of that battle. Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer smacking into the back of Christoph Jasilski right there, and that has cost them massively. They've both lost the position to Malte Hinch and the Mika Seth BMW as well. So Niehuis back into 8th overall, Jasilski back into 9th overall. And now they're going to have to fight their way back through these people, do their hard work all over again. On the bright side for the Malte Hinch entry in the Glickenhaus, they now hold a position in the top 3, and they've got an LMP1 there that has made life a little bit difficult for the drivers behind them. Oh dear, looks like there was some contact there. The third place LMP1 making contact with Malte Hinch. It's difficult for me to tell exactly how that contact came about. Yeah, looks like a potential internet glitch there. Either way, seems that the LMP1 has managed to get going again with minimal real damage. So they continue on and get past the Glickenhaus properly and cleanly this time. Flicking our attention back to TCR, have a look at this. Oh, so close. Look at that. Is that a pass for the lead around the outside of Lecombe? That is magnificent. Sven Versteeg has managed to get his way into the lead of TCR with that magnificent move on McGill and Hazza. TCR Racing has always been a favourite of mine. Just incredible racing. And as a driver whose first racing sim was Race 07, front-wheel drive touring cars are absolutely bread and butter of sim racing for me. Battle for the lead is not over. It seems that McGill and Hazza, they have gotten an excellent run out of Pouhon, but they'll have to wait until a long straight here to make their way past. Rear tyres locking, but that's fairly typical for front-wheel drive touring cars. Make sure to get as smooth an exit as possible out of Pouhon. We've got part-time four-wheel drive cars in the top class. We've got rear-wheel drive cars in the middle class, and we've got front-wheel drives here in the slowest class of the race. But the racing is just as intense, and it's amazing the driving technique required to get the best out of these TCR cars. Having to run the brake bias as far to the rear as you can to rotate the car on the entry to the corners. Make sure that you are as straight as possible when you get to the apex, so that you can save your tyres and not understeer on throttle out of the corners. Have a look at how close this is. Coming up to the end of the lap. There is a lot of potential here for the Audi to make its way back past the Hyundai. Slightly tight entry there from Versteeg, and he ran a bit wide of the apex. But a little bit of a straighter exit, it seems. Actually gaining a little bit on the McGill and Hazza Audi as they come up to Arouge and Raidillon. Now watch this. Watch the pedal inputs there at the bottom of the screen. Those guys are not lifting at all through this section of the track. And I'll tell you what, McGill and Hazza taking plenty of liberties with the curbs up at the top of Raidillon there. But still got two wheels on the curbs, so technically, by my book, I think it's still within track limits. And it seems that it's not gained them any time. In fact, Versteeg is starting to increase the gap, though, with a little trip into the gravel out of Malmedy. That's going to make things slightly more difficult for him. By the way, can I just say how much I love the livery on that Audi? One side Aldi, one side Sainsbury's. You're really representing European supermarkets there. Back to GT3, meanwhile. This is the Mika Seth BMW chasing down the Ferrari of Krzysztof Cieślski. And we see just how hard they are pushing on the brakes. Of course, the GT3s have anti-lock brakes and traction control as well to help them around the circuit. You can really lean on those electronic driver's aids to get the best out of these things as they make their way around the circuit. But once again, it is a slight lift. Oh no, the BMW goes off in a massive fashion, and so does the Glickenhaus. Take it easy, everybody. You know, if it weren't for the 2022 changes to Spa-Francorchamps, extending the runoff area at the top of the hill there, their races would likely have been over. So they can thank their lucky stars for that. Either way, that has extended out the battle for third place. Is it third? No, fourth. Yes, third. Third place in GT3. My apologies. Just making sure that my timing screens are all in order. Back to the LMP1 lead, meanwhile, and Grosjean and RGB Parrot, they are controlling this race. Not much of a surprise to see. They are 2 cars out of a 3-car class, but the professionalism at which they're driving at the moment is amazing. They're able to keep pace with each other. They're able to stay close. They're able to negotiate strategy and traffic as well. Setting some really good times, it has to be said. Fastest lap of the race currently belongs to the car driven by RGB Parrot that you're riding on board with now. 1 minute 58.890 as the leader makes their way past one of the GT3 entries, and very shortly the second place car as well. That is one of the Radicals. Okay, we are getting news of a disqualification for Rexon, who was running last in the GT3s. It's a real shame to hear. We check back once again. The TCR lead battle here in the Charity Drive 3. Every time I see a puff of smoke, I think, oh no, are they gone off? But no, that's typical for TCRs. TCR cars have anti-lock brake systems too, but depending on how you want your car to drive, you definitely need a little bit of rear brake locking in these things just to get them rotated. And with the way the suspension geometry works in these things, oftentimes you will have the inside rear wheel lift completely off the road. So that's the reason why you see those puffs of smoke. That's the inside rear tire just saying, okay, I'm only going to touch the ground a little bit here and help you rotate, with only one rear tire making contact with the ground. Both front tires steering the car as the third place LMP1 comes up behind them. And then let go. And have a look at the speed difference here, just on exit, clearing both of the TCRs by the time they get to the start line there. You can also see from this frame just how close third place is as well. Looks like the battle for the lead is starting to extend a little bit here. McGill and Hazard not able to keep pace with Versteeg at the moment. Seems that despite not qualifying the best in the TCR class, that Hyundai is excellent on race pace and is driving super cleanly as well. No mistakes, for the time being at least. Under 2 hours and 40 minutes remaining. We are at 4:26 p.m. in sim time, as you can see. Which means that the sun will be getting kind of low in the sky. And of course, we do get a clarification from Hazard Walker himself that the Hyundai didn't compete in qualifying. So, really goes to show how great the pace is that Versteeg is managing to eke out of that thing. He's been able to get into the lead and stay there very solidly for the time being, but that's taking nothing away from the other TCR competitors. They are driving as hard as they possibly can, and they'll continue to do so for as long as they can. Moving back to GT3 and looking at the LMP1s as well as they make their way through La Source. Grosjean still in the lead, RGB Parrot as well. They've just made their way past the Captain Foxy Big Dan GT3 Porsche, and that really shows you the speed difference as well. Look at how they just rocket away from these GT3s, but there's a big chain of GT3 traffic that they're making their way past here at the moment. Bit of a late dive from the overall leader on the multi-hinch Glickenhaus, but they avoid each other and manage to make it clean. Unfortunately, RGB Parrot has been held up a little bit there. Of course, doing the right thing. as a faster class car. If you can't make it safely past a GT3 and an LMP1, it is expected that you will stay behind and not try to make any silly moves. And that's exactly what RGB Parrot has done, as round the outside of Malta Hinch tries the Milan Luca Radical, and it looks like Hinch has just had to yield on the entry to Pouon. Gets a slightly better exit from the first apex. That's an Audi spun. That's the Cobby and Rocasgri Audi that has just returned to the pits. That might be a retirement for that Audi. That is a big shame there for that duo. But the battle continues as well between Krzysztof Cieślski and the Mika Seth BMW. Looks like there might have been some problems for Cieślski here because the gap has really closed. Might have had something to do with the two LMP1 leaders that only recently made their way through them. Right then, let's be gentle here as we just received news up the top of the screen that the Cobber well, unfortunately that Audi, it seems, has disconnected from the server, so that is a retirement there for the Audi. A huge shame. As we get further news throughout the field, the LMP1 leaders just making their way through Arouge and Raidillon now, and they have successfully made their way past the TCRs, it seems, which are now starting to mix with GT3 traffic. The Elizabeth Fraser Peugeot having to make way for quite a few people at Le Combe. And oh dear, it looks like RGB Parrot has spun the second LMP1 car. And that happened at Le Combe. Not too sure how that went down. Might have been contact with another car, might have been a lock-up of the brakes, might have been just losing the rear end on the way into that very fast chicane. But either way, the gap for the overall lead is extended now to 15 seconds, where the two cars were running together just before. So, now, LMP1 spread out very equally. And there won't be any hard racing going on for the lead of that class anytime soon, but GT3, it's a bit of a different story. Once again, we check out the Mika Seth and Milan Luca battle. The BMW and the Radical here have been absolutely going at it over the last couple of laps, trying to sort themselves out. No, that's a Ferrari spun. That is Krzysztof Cieślski, who has had a big off at Fagnes. And that's going to be a free position. We look to the GT3 lead here as well. P5 overall, riding on board with the Nijuez and Schnitzelbaumer BMW Z4. Look at how much lock they're cranking on through the bus stop chicane here. Just trying to get as much speed out of that car as possible in the slower corners. The Cobby and Rocasgri Audi, those were the drivers that unfortunately disconnected earlier, and they have now rejoined apparently. I doubt that they'll be able to make it back out on track though. Got to be very careful, but you don't make too many mistakes in big endurance races like this. All the way across the curbs and then some. Off the top of the hill, and the BMW has had a better exit than the Radical. Could this be a move for the GT3 lead? Pulls out of the slipstream. Let's see how late they get on the brakes. They almost draw level in the braking zone. The Radical is later on the brakes, and that screwed them, unfortunately. Just overrun and makes contact with the BMW as well. The Limpet Arch DC Racing entry spins as a result of that contact. But really, it seems they probably did it to themselves. Braking a little too late, going deep into the corner, and then making their way back on track, pretty much at the apex of Le Combe, while the BMW was taking the racing line there. So, very unfortunate, but seems only minor contact between the two cars. They'll both keep going, and they still remain at the top two in GT3. We check back to the Malta Hinch entry in the Glickenhaus. Looks like the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan entry is starting to make ground on these guys. So through Puon they come. And this really goes to show how prototype-like the bodywork on the Glickenhaus is. Really nice looking machine. Over the curbs in Fanye. Got to be on your toes there so as not to destabilize your car, because those are actually some quite quick corners in these cars. Coming up behind the TCR, that's Elizabeth Fraser in the Peugeot, and seems to me minimal issues making their way past that time. But the Captain Foxy Big Boy Dan Porsche still looms in the distance. Very late on the brakes there, and very late apex for the final corner as well. It's actually lost them some ground there. They almost didn't appear in the frame. We see that Mika Seth and Milan Luka, the two BMWs, is, oh dear, was looking away from the production feed at exactly the right time there. That's the Porsche making its way past the Glickenhaus. Really good outbraking move there by Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan. But let's see if the Multi-Hinch and Pi entry can make their way back through. No, they can definitely make their way off the track though, and just avoid the wall. That was a good save there from the driver of the Glickenhaus. Just following a little bit too closely, car got unsettled across the top of the hill. We check in with another one of our Porsches here. Going through the TCRs there. Looks like someone's internet connection needs a bit of a seeing to. Regardless, the other battle going on track. Seems here that Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan are now charging, marching forward. The Mika Seth entry in the pink and white BMW, of course with a bit of Marlboro branding on it as well. Just minding their own business for the time being, losing a little bit of ground to the Milan Luka Radical. And it seems that despite the problems that the Glickenhaus had at the top of the hill, they have actually managed to stay in touch here with Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan. Really amazing to see. Must have been some kind of error there for the Porsche drivers, but I don't know. It could be worth checking out. Well, with half an hour of the race complete, it's Gross Gene who leads the way. RGB Parrot in second, and there'll be two cars done overall, and there is a pit stop from the Mika Seth entry. I think that's our first actual pit stop of the race there. And GT3 cars can make it well over an hour, usually, on one fuel stint, so there must be some kind of extenuating circumstance that has brought that car into the pits. We'll have to wait and see. So with half an hour completed, just want to remind you all that this is a race for charity, and if you scroll down on the Twitch stream page, you'll be able to see that we are supporting Wheelchairs for Kids. So click on the Wheelchairs for Kids logo. You'll be taken to our Just Giving page where you can contribute whatever you desire. And remember, every dollar helps. We are currently at $245 of donations at the moment. That is fantastic there. Gross Gene donating $11, as you can see at the top of the screen there. And Sleeces with $75 donation. That is magnificent. Really awesome to see. So keep donating, everybody. It'd be really awesome to see us raise all of that money to give disadvantaged kids some wheelchairs. That would be awesome. That's the main reason why we're all here today. Well, it seems that the battles on track have quieted down just a little bit. I'll update you on the TCR battle. Sven Versteeg has created now a 7-second gap over the Samuel McGill and Hazza entry, which is pretty crazy. The car just behind them here is the Gego and Big Cat Porsche, who we saw with some interesting movements before. Looks like just coming up on the TCR now, and not as much of a pace difference between GT3 and TCR as there is between LMP1 and literally everyone else. Hopefully these lag issues that the Gigo Big Cat entry is experiencing will not affect the race of the second place TCR here, because if you saw that in your rearview mirror, that would be quite disconcerting, I think, for either McGill or Hazza, whoever is driving at the moment. I believe it is McGill. Well then. Update on GT3, meanwhile. The Cedric Nijuis and Alexis Schnitzelbaum BMW is currently leading the way in GT3 and 4th overall. They are actually just coming up behind the cars we were just looking at. The Limpet Arch and DC Racing car, meanwhile, is not too far behind them. Just making their way through Fagnes, the BMW, but the Radical just making its way into the braking zone for that chicane now. So that gives you an idea of the gap, 11.2 seconds. And plenty of space given there for the GT3 leader by the Gigo Big Cat entry. Oh, and I've just seen that the Milan Luca Radical has spun at Fagnes. Unfortunately, just getting back going, it seems that they might have lost the rear end on the way into the corner. Seems to be a common problem with the mid-engine cars, and it looks like a Porsche in front of them has had the same issue too. That's the Captain Foxy Big Boy Dan car. They've just had an off at Stavelot, so they've lost time as a result of that. So the gaps just continue to ebb and flow here due to mistakes, and we have a look at Malte once again. This very striking Glickenhaus catching up to Krzysztof Cieślski in the Ferrari, and this gap is rapidly decreasing. Around about half a second at the moment is the gap, so let's see then what Malte can do to find his way past here. Unfortunately, a little bit of going wide at the final corner is not going to help matters. So he'll have to wait for potentially a mistake from Krzysztof. Out of La Source they come. Now let's see how much of a lift it is for the Glickenhaus of Malte. Look at the green bar down at the bottom. Just lifts there, goes briefly to 75% throttle. That is a very quick lift though. And it shows that the Glickenhaus seemingly has a lot of aerodynamic grip through that section of the course that he can take advantage of. Lost 3/10 to the car in front thanks to that mistake out of La Source. Out of the bus stop chicane, sorry. But he's trying to claw it back. Seems though that Krzysztof has gotten a good turn of pace here. You see the gap briefly increasing to over a second there. But Malte a little bit harder into the corners. Let's have a look then to the section of the course where Christoph made his mistake, and it seems Christoph went very wide at Puon there. He's actually taking full advantage of the tarmac runoff. There he is. Goodness gracious. But keeping it on track into Fagnes. Stavelot is going to be the next part of the circuit where you really have some trouble with the rear end if you've got it set up a bit too stiff or your brake bias is a bit too far to the rear. You can see how hard Malte is pushing. He's using all of the curb and then some on the exit of just about every corner. The gap is starting to decrease again. He's got a little bit of slipstream. It was 0.9 of a second. Now it's hovering between 0.8 and 0.7. You can see that Christoph is being a lot more liberal with his track limits at the exit of Blanchimont. But a clean line through the bus stop chicane will set them up here. And this time, Malte hits the apex of the final corner. We've gotten news of another donation that has just come in. Really awesome, awesome stuff there. You'll be able to see it at the top of the screen. Saying congratulations to everyone who's driving in this event and for making the world a little bit better. Thank you for your donation. Nathan Vaughan also with $50 as well. Don't forget, if you wish to donate, then you'll be able to just scroll down a bit on the Twitch stream and you will see our charity down there, Wheelchairs for Kids. Keeping our focus on this battle for now, we've got the third place LMP1 making their way through on Malte there, forcing him to take the narrow way into Fagnes, which has cost him a bit of time that he was already losing to Krzysztof Ciesielski. And it looks like Christoph has had to lose a bit of time on the exit of Paul Frere and Stavelot as well as a result of the LMP1 too. So now the battle is close, and actually it seems that Christoph has decided to lift off and let Malte go on the way into Blanchimont. Probably already aware that he was losing a lot of pace on the exit of the corner and figured, yeah, you know, probably not the best idea to try and fight this. You can just let the car by and focus on your lines, focus on trying to go as fast as possible, make your way back past them later, be it on track or in the pit lane. That is the beauty of endurance racing, be it in real life or sim. But a little bit too hot into La Source there, unfortunately, for the Ferrari. He is going to lose a tiny bit more pace. This is the closest battle on track at the moment. And I've just seen there's a car spun at the exit of Puon. I'm not too sure who, but they've managed to get going again. And it looks like some good news for anyone who's following the Cobby and Rokas Gris Audi GT3. They have managed to return to the circuit, which is really awesome. They are back out in 19th overall. So just coming up now, still looking at this battle between Ciesielski and Hinch. The gap continues to ebb and flow a little bit. And I think I can confirm that the car that we had spun at Puon was the GT3 entry of Jeffrey and Grocky Rocky, as there goes the Glickenhaus, trying his best to defend from the Ferrari. This is a big battle that's going on at the moment between the two of them. Oh, they give each other a good amount of room, though, on the exit of the corner, which is really nice to see. So Christoph ends up back in front. But for how long is the big question. There we go. Now we have some stream donation alerts coming in. So you can see Pico Official donating $15.23. There we are. Awesome stuff to see from all of the people who have donated to Wheelchairs for Kids so far. Brilliant to see how generous the sim racing community is. Anonymous Man with $50 as well, making up a few $100 in Australian money that we have raised so far. And this event is not even 1/3 of the way through. We keep our eyes here on the... Oh, it looks like... I think... I might have missed it because I was busy looking at the donations, but Malte Hinch, it appears, has gone into the pits, and so left Krzysztof Cieślski out on track. Hinch has now completed the pit stop. Looks like a 45-minute stint there for the number 40 Glickenhaus. And they're back out on track at the moment. And we also see that RGB Parrot has brought the second place LMP1 into the lane as well. Just managed to exit the box there with a nice pit stop. We look at the third place LMP1 car. This will have closed the gap massively between the two cars, but I'll tell you what, it's likely that we'll be seeing our other two LMPs pit within the next lap or so. That might have been an early call there by RGB Parrot to bring the car in, because typically the fuel tank will last anywhere from 45 to 55 minutes, depending on how much fuel saving you do. But you definitely can't make it over an hour in the fuel tank of one of these things. So I would expect Grosjean and the Nathan Vaughan Evelyn Go car to make their way into the lane at the end of this lap. If they don't, I will be very surprised. As we have seen plenty of GT3 cars starting to pit, we also see Grosjean make his way into the lane as well. Now, what will the Vaughan and Go car do? They are almost a full lap behind, so we'll have plenty of time for Grosjean to complete his pit stop and still emerge in the lead of the race. Looking like a longish pit stop here, but as the camera will start moving soon, there we go. Out of the box comes Grosjean. And off the pit limiter, hard on the brakes, negotiate that hairpin on the way out of the pits. Very difficult to get that right, but fully done with the pit stop and still in the lead by roughly 19 seconds. And true to form, the Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go car just coming into the pit lane now. So all of our LMP runners have made their stops. And the slightly shorter stint there by just one lap for RGB Parrot. Don't know how significant that's going to be later on in the race. Alright, well, we move our attention briefly to the TCR class once more. And we keep our eye here on the Vigo Ketelar car. The Six Sigma Sim Racing entry driving the Lincoln Co., which, in my mind, is one of the more interesting TCR designs to come out of the world of motorsport in recent times. Really odd machine, the Lincoln Co. One of the models is sold as pretty much a crossover SUV, but they made a sedan out of it and raced it in TCR racing. And they managed to pretty well dominate the TCR World Cup with it. Very fast car, the Lincoln Co. And Ketelar is keeping himself in contention here, still maintaining P3. Meanwhile, here's a battle that is continuing to eventuate. The Milan Luca Radical entry, followed by the Mika Seth BMW some time away. Just getting past here by Grosjean in the overall lead. It looks like some traffic dramas potentially for the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan Porsche, who now has to contend with Vigo Ketelar's TCR car. So here is where I'm thinking Milan and Luca can definitely make up some time if Captain Foxy is held up. Looks like he had to lift off, and Ketelar going wide. The Porsche sees the door open and sneaks through. And no harm done. At least to the cars. To the gaps, though, seems that Milan and Luca, they're actually in the same frame at points as the Porsche, and they have line of sight to them. I can see that we've had a trade for fastest lap as well. And I'm talking about overall fastest lap. Grosjean now holds it 1 minute 57.288. That's 0.3 ahead. BGT 1899, $8.75 donation we're hearing. Saying good job all. Thank you very much, mate. We appreciate your donation. Over 30 viewers on the stream now, which is awesome to see. And oh, not so awesome to see is the Porsche running deep at the bus stop chicane. That gives a further slight advantage to the Milan Luca Radical, who is just eking ever closer. The gap was just over 3 seconds. Now it's just under 2.8 seconds. Well, we'll see now what we can do to make our way through this first half of the race. Really incredible stuff from the leading LMP1. Grosjean has just controlled this race. Really awesome form from that lead LMP1 car. And we're getting a little bit of news that we might have some drivers joining us, and I would definitely be okay with that, as that is a mistake from the Mika Seth BMW at Lecom. They managed to get going, though. Got to take it easy, as now we are joined by one of the drivers that we were following before, or at least a member of the team, running an 18th overall. They had a big crash, they had to go back to the pits, leave the server. They've now rejoined and are running an 18th overall. It's the Cobby and Ruckus Gree Audi, and Cobby himself has joined us now. So, not the greatest start to the race for you, Cobby, but you're still out there. which is the main thing, and that's what you have to look for in an endurance race.
Yeah, we're still going, fortunately. Unfortunately, on that first, as we were coming through the bus stop chicane, I faced a car facing towards me, and I couldn't move out the way, so I got wiped out. And then we carried on going for a bit. Turns out we had the wrong tyres on, so it was just undrivable. So we've come back into the pits, changed those, and changed the driver over. Hopefully we can regain some positions, but we are very far down the order at this point that it's almost unsavable.
Well, there could still be retirements to come.
Yes, that's what we're hoping for. Because our driver is doing well. He's putting in the pace. It's annoying, actually, because he's the fastest driver out there at the moment, yet he's in P18 because he's just so far away. He's like 150 seconds or so behind. So
yeah, that is well over 1.5 laps.
Yes.
Well, actually, maybe a lap and about 15 seconds change, now that I think about it.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone else in front changes drivers, but then I think we're changing drivers soon anyway, so that will put us further down again. But I know hopefully things change and works out for the better, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, just keep plugging away at it, and certainly it's awesome to see that, you know, the charity drive is supporting wheelchairs for kids. Really speaks to the power of sim racing, that we can get people together and allow them to support causes like this, all while having a good race too.
Yeah, it's nice. I've had to experience it. It's not the nicest thing being in a wheelchair as a kid, but it is what it is. You know, you have to take that as you go and move on and make a better life out of it.
Yeah, indeed you do. And Wheelchairs for Kids is helping people to do that. Well, thank you very much for joining us briefly there, Cobby. We wish you the best of luck for the rest of the race.
Take care. Enjoy.
All right, well, that's Cobby there. Partner driver of the number 118 Ferrari. Rokas out there, and Cobby is correct. Rokas currently the quickest driver out there at the moment. His fastest lap is a 2-minute 19.279, and looks like no other GT3 has been able to get quite close to that. Really excellent pace from that car, which makes you wonder, if they didn't have their incident earlier, where might they be now? But like I said to Cobby, keep plugging at it, and you will be able to potentially salvage some kind of result out of this. Looks like the closest fight on track at the moment is between the Captain Foxy Big Boy Dan car and the Milan Luca Radical. Those two following not too far behind Krzysztof Cieślski in the Ferrari. 7.5 second gap back to the Captain Foxy Big Boy Dan car, and then a further 5.5 seconds back to this Radical that you are looking at the moment. And drive-through penalty from race control for the Soggy Bread Arthur Porsche. I believe that might be for some potential infraction out on track. They're currently embroiled in a fight not for position with the Malta Hinch Glickenhaus. So let's keep our eyes peeled. Getting some news that the drive-through was for ignoring blue flags, and blue flags are only advisory in endurance racing. You're not exactly under a huge amount of pressure to let faster cars by like you would be in, say, Formula 1, for example, but you still got to do it, and in a timely fashion. If you end up blocking someone under blue flags, take it easy. If you end up blocking someone under blue flags, then that can certainly be a hefty penalty coming your way. That was the TCR leader, Sven Versteeg, that was almost run off the track there by the Captain Foxy Big Boy Dan Porsche that we're riding on board with. Very nearly disaster, but fortunately it seems both cars have gotten away with it. And now they make their way towards the Gigo Big Cat Porsche. Looks like we have a car in the pits. It's one of the TCRs, I believe. And it looks like the McGill and Hazza TCR has come into the pits as well. TCR pit stops are happening, and the Cedric Niehuis and Alexis Schnitzelbaumer GT3 is also in the lane as well. And that was the car that was leading GT3, and TCR leaders in the lane as well. So Sven Versteeg still in the lane. And for some reason, I'm not quite able to find the Audi that came into the pits behind them. Long pit for Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer, so there's been a driver swap in that car. And the Samuel McGill Hazza Walker Audi is completing a driver swap as well. So they were not driving solo, and it looks like they've actually overtaken Sven Versteeg in the pits. Sven is still at a standstill in his pit box. I'm not sure if there's been some kind of issue for him. Either way, that Audi should be back into the lead, and oh dear, looks like they've stopped at the exit of pit lane. They're in neutral and revving the engine. Something has gone wrong with that driver swap. Hazza Walker is now in the car, and Versteeg gets back into the TCR lead. This is a very bizarre happening. Looks like there might be some problems here, potentially with controls for Hazza Walker, and that's created further problems in the pits, because if we go to Vigo Ketelaar, 16th overall, he's actually stopped behind the Audi, who's just managed to get going. I'm not too sure Vigo is aware that you could just drive right through them in the pits. Why have they... What's going on here? I see. Okay. Clarifying a rule that I was aware of and then promptly forgot about, as there's a battle there. Versteeg making his way out. In order to equalize competition between solo drivers and the drivers who are driving with driver swaps, cars will have to do a long pit, which means they have to hold the end of pit lane. So that's the reason for all of the chicanery at the end of pit lane that you just saw. So Sven Versteeg back into the lead, and he is over 30 seconds ahead of the second place TCR car of McGill and Hazza Walker, and having to be negotiated by a Radical GT3 as well. Looks like that's the Milan Luca entry. Meanwhile, the Soggy Bread and Arthur car serving a drive-through penalty. Oh no. Oh no, that's one of the leading Porsches. Was that Grosjean? It was. That was the overall leader. that just made contact with a GT3 in one of the fastest parts of the track. This changes everything. Goodness me. So, now we have to think, what does this mean for the Grosjean Parrot Racing crew? RGB Parrot in the lead, but Grosjean might lose second place out of this. No, apparently still a lap in front, so let's see what we can do further towards the end.
Hey, hello.
Hello. It is Big Boy Dan himself. I've been talking about your car quite a bit as of recent. Driving with Captain Foxy, of course.
Captain Foxy is doing amazingly. I'm really impressed with him. So yeah, god damn, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good performance from you guys so far. Just tell us what it's like driving a rear-engine car around Spa-Francorchamps, because the Porsche 911, of course, definitely a pure Porsche. It's got the engine almost hanging over the rear axle. So obviously there's some different driving characteristics to think about when compared to the other GT3 cars.
Definitely. So I think it handles a lot better when you have a bit more on the brakes, but you just gotta be careful with that rear end because it can swing out easily. So that's why in our setup, we've got it raised a little bit, which gives us a bit more control. And it actually races really well. It's good stability, a lot better than the Mercedes we were going to go for at the start. So we're really impressed with kind of the setup of it and how it goes around those corners with good stability, considering the rear engine at the back.
Yeah, indeed, flat out through Blanchimont, as most GT3 cars tend to do. And oh dear, unfortunately a little bit of an overshoot there into the bus stop chicane, but still keeping good pace. You guys currently lead the GT3 class, it seems, and looking for some good results here towards the end, as long as you can keep it on the black stuff.
Yeah, so the plan is, hopefully no one else is listening too much or whatever, but I'll let you into the secret. Captain Foxy, definitely a lot faster than me, so the plan is for him to get ahead, and then once we swap over, I'm just going to try and keep the consistency and stay as far in front as possible, and hopefully our strategy works and keeps us a bit more in front.
Of course, it is a multi-class endurance race, so anything can happen.
Exactly.
I noticed that the gap in pace between GT3 and TCR not quite as much as I expected through the corners. So when you come up on a TCR, you'll obviously have a bit of negotiating to do.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I mean, there's been some, I think before when you were spectating us, there was a couple close calls when we were getting past those TCRs. So it was good that we managed to kind of keep it on the track and not have any incidents go down there, because that would have really thrown us off. As well, I've seen, so our sister team with Soggy Bread and Arthur, they've had some issues trying to get past those TCRs as well, I think, and that's what caused the penalty for them.
Well, as we keep our eyes on that TCR battle, the one for second on the road at the moment, those two cars together again. We thank you very much, Dan, for joining us, and we wish you and Captain Foxy the best of luck towards the end.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, Big Boy Dan there has definitely got his eye in for his teammate. Battle on camera there for our TCR runners, and it looks like the Vigo Ketelaar car has made their way past the pairing of Hazza Walker and Samuel McGill, and Hazza Walker, not too sure if he has yet to get into the car, if it's still McGill driving, but either way, that is a position change, and it happened at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Really good stuff between them. The Soggy Bread and Arthur car that Dan was just talking about there, they have escaped the pits after taking their long pit. And they're back out on track. Meanwhile, we see the Cobby and Rockascree Audi making their way past their fellow Audi, but in a different class. Third place in TCR there, with the combination Aldi and Sainsbury's livery. Sven Versteeg still leads the TCR class by well over 40 seconds. So, in my mind, at this stage, it's going to take a massive crash or an error for that to change in the lead as we have another pit stop here getting done for, it seems, 5th place in GT3. That's the Mika Seth BMW making its way out of the pits now. And I'm not too sure if they got onto the track a bit too soon coming out of pit lane. But it's all much of a muchness in the end. They maintain 5th in class. Meanwhile, if you're curious about the former overall leader, Grosjean, looks like they've made their way back out on track. And still in 2nd place. But unfortunately, on my timing at least, it looks like 3 laps down on the overall leader of RGB Parrots. Already a huge gap at the top end of the field in the LMP1 class. But crucially, on the same lap is the Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go car. So potential for 3rd place in LMP1 to make up a position here. But with Grosjean's pace, I'm not too sure if that will end up being the case. We are joined once again by another driver in the session, the Audi in TCR that we've been taking a good look at. And oh dear, oh dear, oh no. Samuel McGill. Yeah.
That's not a great time to join.
Oh, yeah, actually he's back. He's back. Hazard is back.
Oh,
well,
phew.
this is a that's a bit of a stressful moment for you. You guys are running at the top end of the TCR class, and to have something happen like that should really get on your nerves a bit. Oh no! Oh no! It looks like Hazard has been kicked out of the server.
Wait. Oh dear.
Oh
I
no!
might need to go back and connect it.
Yep. All right. Go and do your job, Samuel. And thanks for joining us briefly.
I'm sure I'll talk to you later.
Yes. Oh dear. Big dramas for the McGill Hazard team. Right as Mr. McGill was set to join us. And that is a podium position in the TCR class, undoubtedly gone for that car. My heart breaks for them. But we keep our eyes on the Mika Seth BMW holding on to 5th in class. 13 seconds behind the Nyquist and Schnitzelbaumer BMW, who was formerly leading the class. Going back to Malte Hinch, who is in the pits at the moment, and something's going on there. Just completing a pit stop while there's a long pit being served there by the Milan Luca Radical right ahead of them. So we should see that Radical pull away pretty soon. Now, question is there going to be a long pit for the Hinch entry that we ride on board with? That is the big question. Because if not, then these cars will likely be very close out on track. Got to stay in there for a solid minute, and you'll see him merging into the frame very shortly. Right there. That is the McGill Hazza Audi, and McGill now stops at the end of the lane to take a long pit there. Unfortunately, having to jump into the car, back into the car, because of Hazza's unfortunate disconnection from the server. And I heard the engine revving for Malte Hinch just behind. So he should be getting going soon. The long pit has already been taken for the Milan Luca Radical. And it looks like the Radical is out on track at the moment and weaving down the Kimmel Straight to put some heat into the tyres. McGill, meanwhile, makes it out. And another long pit done. And it looks like that was a long pit once more for the Malte Hinchton Pie entry. So, oh goodness, very stressful to see an LMP1 making their way through on you at that part of the track. That would definitely get the heart racing. A drive-through penalty, meanwhile, for the Cedric Niehuis and Alexis Schnitzelbaumer car. Not too sure what that penalty was for. We will be joined very shortly by Hazza Walker, who was driving the combination Audi and Sainsbury's Audi before, unfortunately, suffering a disconnection. Hazza, can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, I was going along the straight, and the LMP was going past, and I saw it lag. And at that point, I was worried, and then by the time I got the poo on, it came up saying I've been kicked from the race. I was only on the first lap I was in.
Yeah, that's a real shame for you guys. You were running very well in the TCR class up until that point. Do you think that you and Samuel might be able to come back from this?
Hoping so. He's quite a long way back, but Sam is very fast, so I'm hoping he can claw back second place from this.
And of course, only having one lap in the car so far, is the plan for you to get back in the car at some point, or will those internet issues be putting paid to that?
I'm going to have a look at the internet and see if I can get it working properly again, and then hopefully nearer to the end of the race I'll go back in.
All right. Well, certainly our hopes are behind you, and we really hope that you'll be able to get back in the car and have a proper run at it. Before we let you go, just give us the experience of driving a TCR car at this circuit. Obviously only a single lap so far in the race, but you've obviously put a lot of time in the car in the practice and qualifying sessions. So what's it like driving a front-wheel drive car around a circuit with plenty of quick corners?
It's a really fun car to drive. I really enjoy doing all the practice, and it's really hard for me to crash, so I much appreciate that.
All right, well, thanks very much, Hazza, for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck with your internet, and hopefully we'll be able to see you out there soon.
Thank you.
That's Hazza Walker there, partner to Samuel McGill, driving the car that you are currently looking at in the background of this static shot down the Kimmel Straight. There is the TCR leader, the Hyundai of Sven Versteeg. It looks like a little bit of drama here for McGill as he has to make way for an LMP1 and then a GT3. And that is the Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer BMW just making their way past, and wow, that's interesting. Not going for the move up the inside of Bruxelles, but on the headlight flash. So McGill, obviously getting on the nerves of the driver of the BMW, runs wide at Jackie X and lets them go. And Hazza is right. They are down quite a fair way. They have over 2 minutes gap to the next car, which isn't even in their class. It's the Cobby and Rocker Scree Audi R8 GT3. The next TCR car is P3 in class, which is now taken up by this car. It's the Franco Rizzuti and Romano Dvoracek Doratzek, I believe. Apologies if I have completely bottled the pronunciation on that one. The Alfa Romeo, from what I can see, the sole Alfa Romeo in the TCR field. And some good points being raised in the Twitch chat as well. People have been asking questions about whether or not cars will be able to unlap themselves under safety car. They cannot. So, short of RGB Parrot having his own issues, there's no way Grosjean will be able to get back to the lead of the race under current circumstances. Out of the bus stop chicane comes the Alfa Romeo Giulia, which is one of my, or Giulietta, my apologies. The Giulia is the big sedan. I do like my Alfa Romeos. Has to make way for the GT3. It looks like some slight contact there from the Cobby and Rocco Scree car, who's still trying to make their way further forward after the issues they suffered earlier with a crash. This Alfa Romeo, meanwhile, they've had a pretty quiet race. And sometimes in endurance racing, a quiet race is the best race. Looks like a further 20 seconds have been lost in the meantime for the McGill has a Walker entry. They are unfortunately now 2 minutes and 23 seconds or thereabouts behind the Alfa Romeo we were just watching in third. So we've unfortunately missed whatever happened to them there. But things not exactly getting better for the Audi TCR crew at the moment. Moving back to the overall leader, meanwhile, RGB Parrot in car 1. Coming up on the TCR second place. Vigo Ketelar and Plug Racing, and oh dearie me. That is a big fat mistake there from the overall leader and almost cleaned up the TCR on the way back onto the circuit. Got to take it easy. The LMP1 class does have traction control at its disposal, but it does not have anti-lock brakes. So you've got to be careful with how you apply the brake pedal there. And of course, a big lockup like that will obviously induce flat spots. Assetto Corsa's tyre model does include flat spotting, so there might be some big vibrations going through RGB Parrot's wheel at the moment. Got to take care of the oversteer as well. Get on the hybrid boost and get some of that power going through the front wheels. Minimize the oversteer on exit. Jerry Lenance in the Twitch chat saying something that I wholeheartedly agree with, and my whole heart was just about in my throat with that. Radical staying in the middle of the road and causing a little bit of confusion for our LMP1 leader. But yeah, Jerry, I agree. Front-wheel drive racing cars are a very different beast, and a lot of people dunk on them. You know, call them boring, or, you know, not real race cars or whatever. I completely disagree with that notion. I think TCR racing is some of the best racing you will ever see. Because you're right, they are about momentum. And you can race really closely with them as well. Definitely drivers' cars, those ones. I also enjoy the fact that TCRs produce about 350 horsepower, which is actually quite powerful for a front-wheel drive car. I remember back in the Super 2000 days when the World Touring Car Championship ran them as their regulations. The cars produced about 250 to 275 horsepower, and the racing was good. But you can definitely tell the drivers have to work quite a bit in TCR to get themselves going. Well, looks like things have calmed down now for our overall leader. RGB Parrot back into the rhythm, back pounding out those good lap times. But Grosjean continues to be the fastest car overall on track. In terms of fastest overall laps, Grosjean has 4/10 on RGB Parrot at the moment. It's just able to extract a little bit more pace out of the Porsche 919 there. We right on board here with the Mika Seth BMW making their way across the start-finish line to start another lap. This is a good time to see what a lap around Spa-Francorchamps is like. And back on board with the Radical as well, seeing these overhead camera shots. Very nice clean lines happening. And just working his way past their RGB Parrot on the Mika Seth BMW. Some good fights should be coming on soonish. At the moment, though, there aren't any cars that are within more than 19 seconds for the most part. The Limpet Arch and OC Racing Radical, meanwhile, just coming out of the pits there. That was another long pit for them. So, and speaking of the Milan Luca car, just seeing that Luca himself in the broadcast chat from the OC Racing crew. A very good drive in the first part of the race. But, yeah, a real shame. It seems that the hard tyres were not to their liking, and they had to come back into the pits again, so a bit of time lost there. But they remain in 5th place in GT3 at the moment. They do have a bit of time to make up, though. Looking quite close here. Oh, that is big contact there. It looks to me like that is the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan entry that has just made contact with one of the Radicals there. It was the Limpet Arch and DC Racing car. That was a pretty big incident there, and probably not what either of them would have wanted. That was, I believe that was actually the GT3 leader in the Porsche trying to make his way past and put the Radical a lap down, but evidently a bit of a miscommunication between the drivers there. We can see that the sun is getting ever lower in the sky, and that means there's quite a bit of glare coming off the road, which will make things difficult at times for the drivers to see. Of course, for this race, we're running all the plugins that are all the rage for Assetto Corsa now. Sol for weather, and the custom shaders pack as well. The custom shaders patch, my apologies. So that's the reason why the sim looks as good as it does, and we actually have some altering time of day. We are at 5:30 p.m. in sim time, and we are just coming up on the halfway mark of this race. Especially in that area of the track there with the shadows coming across the racetrack, it can make things quite difficult for the drivers as the sunlight alters. Can only imagine what that would be like in real life with a blazing sun and very big shadows, as that's a problem for one of the cars in La Source. Judging from the fender vents, it looks like that might be one of the Porsches. It is. It is the Soggy Bread Arthur entry. That just unfortunately, I think, went a bit too deep in La Source. Look briefly at the sister car, which is leading the GT3 class, and of course, at that very corner there, had a bit of a coming together with the Radical. And yes, that is indeed a tyre. This is one of the things that I love so much about sim racing and the liveries that people come up with. You know, there's really no limit to what you can put on a sim racing car in terms of liveries. Of course, you know, decency and you know, not doing anything untoward aside, there could be some really funny liveries out there. So looking at the gaps, it seems that there's a little bit of a race happening for second in GT3. Krzysztof Cieślski still holds on to second in his Ferrari, but the Nyquist and Schnitzelbaumer BMW is starting to reel them in a little bit. Gap is at 13.6 seconds and falling. So it will be very interesting to see where that goes from there. So Hazza in the Twitch chat, how far back are you from the next TCR? It looks like about 2 minutes and 4 seconds from what I can see. So just under a lap. Samuel McGill will need to really put his fast boots on to try and make up some of that gap. For context, McGill is just coming into Bruxelles at the moment and exiting. And meanwhile, the Franco and Romano Alfa Romeo just coming down the Kemmel Straight to the braking zone at Le Combe. Doable in 90 minutes? I'm sure. We have to see what the pace difference between the cars is, though. And I can tell you, as you can see in the top left, their laps so far, the Alfa Romeo sitting a 2:36.5 on their last lap. Meanwhile, Samuel McGill doing a 2:32, so gaining 4 seconds on the Alfa in that last lap, which is pretty substantial. So I think, yes, it is definitely doable. Pit stop completed, meanwhile, for RGB Parrot in the LMP1. And maintaining, of course, that overall lead of 3 laps. Grosjean, meanwhile, just come into the lane and has lost second overall to the Vaughn and Go car, who now gets into second. And a drive-through for cutting from the Mika Seth BMW, unfortunately for them. They fell afoul of the track limits and have had to take a trip through the pits, but they're back out on track now. Thinking about the chase for second place in GT3, Krzysztof Cieślski will have to look over his shoulder pretty shortly, because Nyquist and Schnitzelbaumer, they are catching up. The gap is now under 10 seconds. And the sister car to Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan, Soggy Bread and Arthur, just ahead of Cieślski here. And they've got a TCR to contend with as well. That is second in TCR there, as into the pits comes Krzysztof Cieślski. All right, so that's going to be position loss there via a pit stop. Don't forget, there was a recent pit stop for the Nyquist and Schnitzelbaumer car there, the Rotary Racing BMW. With, of course, if you look hard enough on the rear bumper, a Rest Easy Ken Block sticker on the back, which, you know, of course, really rocked the motorsport and car culture world, the recent passing of Ken Block. I was absolutely heartbroken to see that news, and Ken Block really did a lot for the exposure of rally racing, and he had a monumental impact on car culture, and it's really awesome to see the tributes flowing in from sim racers around the globe. We have a big fat donation that has just come in from anonymous woman, $200. Where on earth has that come from? Thank you so much for that donation. That is simply incredible. That would have probably nearly doubled our total. The donation message is, "Oops, I lost some money." No, you didn't lose it. You gave it to a good cause. Thank you so much. Looks like there's a bit of a potential fight going in the pits, and the Mika Seth BMW has pitted for a driver swap. Meanwhile, a long pit completed for the Captain Foxy Big Boy Dan car at the front of GT3, and they have just managed to get out ahead of Milan and Luca. Milan, I believe, if I can correct my pronunciation there. Milan, currently at the wheel of the Radical, I believe. There's the pit stop completed for Krzysztof Cieślski and Checo Mango. That was a driver swap in that car. So now, the Rotary Racing BMW with Nijuez and Schnitzelbaumer is now at the front of the GT3 field once again, despite the issues that they had before. Keeping an eye on the intriguing battle for Samuel McGill to try and make his way back to third place in TCR. This is the car on screen at the moment. The gap is continuing to fall here. The Alfa Romeo, the Rizzuti and Dworzec car, doing a 2-minute 41 lap time on their last lap. 2-minute 32 for Samuel McGill. So he is making up bulk time there to get back onto the TCR podium. Really amazing drive happening there. So let's see what he can do here when he comes up to the start-finish line. What's this lap going to be like? Will he be able to get into the 231s? 231.993. There we go. How's that? Well, now, in my mind, that is the main battle on track at the moment, and a really great story to come out of this race is the unfortunate disconnection issues that McGill and Walker have unfortunately suffered there after their driver swap. We're seeing the RGB Parrot has just taken a long pit there. And so that brings the gap for the overall lead down to 1.9 laps. The Nathan Vaughan Evelyn Go car in second, just ahead of them on track at the moment, making their way out of Malmedy as they enter the braking zone for Les Combes. A question from Multi, who is now exited the Glickenhaus number 40. Really good drive, by the way, mate. what happened to the TCRs? Thought there were 7, not 4. It seems there have been some issues for a few of our TCRs so far in this race, and unfortunately a couple of retirements from that. So there are only 4 TCRs left in the field at the moment. But I'll tell you what, the battle for 3rd and 4th there will certainly be heating up very shortly. Back into the 2-minute 30s for the Dvoracek and Rizzuti Alfa Romeo, 237.6. But still, Samuel McGill is continuing to pound out those incredibly fast lap times. So for what is now GT3 second place, the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan Porsche, they might have to start looking over their shoulder pretty soon here as they come into the bus stop chicane, not least for the LMP1 of RGB Parrot just making their way past him, but also for Milan in the bright blue and white Radical that you see on screen there. 6.5 seconds is the gap, and a big chunk of that time was just lost due to the Porsche letting the LMP1 by. There was 3 seconds lost. So Captain Foxy is definitely going to have to pull something out to keep this gap active. I'm seeing a potential pass here way down the order in GT3. 16th overall, the soggy bread Arthur Porsche entry being chased by these guys, Colby and Rock Asgree. This is probably going to be the first pass for position they've made in quite some time as they continue to try and make their way forward. Still just about the quickest GT3 car on track, this Audi here, but unfortunately running wide and having to make way for the Milan-driven Radical. But you see a little mistake there for the Porsche up ahead, and there we go. Soggy Bread and Arthur suffering a big problem there. Just ran a bit too wide out of Bruxelles, and the car ended up fishtailing, it seems. Couldn't regain control of the vehicle and slamming into the wall. So position lost, and about 9 seconds now to the Colby and Rokas entry. I'm getting a correction there from the Twitch chat. My apologies. Seems that Captain Foxy is now out of the second place GT3 car. It is Dan who is now at the wheel of that machine. My apologies. And you can see up the top of the timing screen there is a new overall fastest lap. It looks like RGB Parrot has turned up the wick, and by some margin, 1 minute 56.2. That is one heck of a lap time for race conditions with traffic out on track. Might have gotten a little bit of a lucky break in terms of traffic to get that time down. So that is 9/10 faster than the next fastest lap that Gross Jeans set. Brilliant stuff. Riding on board with the Radical GT3 here. And having to lift off just slightly, I think, through Radion to make their way past the continual chasing TCR car of McGill and Walker, who are continuing to smash out those times, but to less of an extent than they were before. Oh no! That's one of our Radicals out. The Limpet Arch and DC Racing car disqualified for not taking a drive-through penalty. That is massive. That car was running in 7th in GT3. They're still out on track for the time being, but They will have to remove themselves from the track pretty soon, or else the game will do it for them. That is a real big blow to those guys who are running in 10th overall. On board here with big boy Dan, who we saw have a very nice chat with us earlier, is now embroiled in a battle with Milan in the Radical here. And oh dear, a little bit of a trip into the gravel trap there for the Radical. That's all the hard work undone, and a little bit of breathing space now for Dan. It looks like they've had to make way there for the Nijuez and Schnitzelbaumer BMW, who is leading GT3 overall. They're about to put a lap on second place. In fact, looks like probably 2 laps at this stage. Or there or thereabouts. Should be 1 lap. So now let's see what they can do here to get a whole lap on the rest of the GT3 field. That was a bit of a mistake there for Dan at the top of Raidillon. This is going to be easier than they expected, I think, in the BMW. But that little mistake there from the Porsche will bring the Radical back into contention to get second place in class. And some big news for the TCR third place battle. It looks like Samuel McGill has managed to do it. We'll see how this battle eventuates though first for second in GT3. Inside line for the Radical at Bruxelles. It's a descending corner. You can't afford to go in here too hard, side by side. And Dan has to yield at the exit. It is possible to hold the outside at that corner, but I think with an hour and 15 minutes to go in a 3-hour endurance race, you're better off keeping your car clean at that stage. But yes, the McGill and Hazza Walker car has overtaken the Rizzuti and Dvorak Alfa Romeo for third place in TCR. So finally a position made up for them. It looks like a little bit of damage for, I believe, the Alfa Romeo. So, the Audi, my apologies. So evidently there's been an issue here for McGill somewhere out on track. Regardless, it seems that he's still able to keep up some good lap times. His last time was a 2-minute 33.092. Meanwhile, the Alfa Romeo, they were battling with 2-minute 42 on the previous lap, so obviously suffering a few issues there. But on board with McGill into the bus stop chicane. It's amazing how late these TCR cars can brake, and evidently that was a tiny bit too late there for Alex. Oh, sorry, Samuel. My apologies. Somehow got him confused with Alex Gillen, and I'm not too sure why. A little bit of an automatic blip on the way into La Source. These TCR cars have the same kind of transmission that the majority of GT3 cars have. It's a sequential transmission with automatic throttle blipping on downshifts. And it's controlled by paddle shifters. So they may be front-wheel drive touring cars based on road-going chassis, but in every way, shape and form, they are very much purebred racing cars. There was a little bit off the track there for McGill. Fortunately, not coming under the ire of track cuts, I believe. It also looks like in the battle for second in GT3, things have calmed down a little bit. Big Boy Dan is able to keep it within 5 seconds as we have a look at the number 40 Glickenhaus, formerly driven by Malte Hinch. Now with Pai at the wheel. You can really get a sense for the aerodynamics of the Glickenhaus car. That diffuser just sticks out the back end, almost like an open wheel race car. These guys are 6.9 seconds behind the Ferrari we've been checking out for most of the race. The white Ferrari, driven by Krzysztof Cieślski. Just taking a couple of tenths out of them, corner by corner. There's the Soggy Bread and Arthur entry. Just about to make up a position, but only overall, not for class position. Jetting their way past Samuel McGill. And away they go on their way. 4.6 seconds behind the Audi of Cobby and Rokas. Another car that had issues early on and is trying to fight their way back up. Of course, they have a Porsche in their midst as well, the one driven by Gego and Big Cat, who were having some, it seems, pretty big internet dramas early on. Bit of an unstable connection to the server. So let's see what kind of time Soggy Bread and Arthur can make up on the car ahead, and probably won't be it'll probably be a big ask for them to make up any further positions for the time being, because the Cobby Rokas Gris Audi is 1.5 laps down on the next car for position, and that's both class and overall. The Jeffrey and Grocky Crocky Radical in 12th overall is 1.4 laps ahead of that Audi being chased by this number 69 Porsche. Really heartwarming to see. Keep it up, says Jennifer Evans with a $20 donation. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And oh dear, looks like a big problem for the Cobby Rokas Gris Audi there at the bottom of the frame. They've gone off at Stavelot, and I think that might have been contact with another car. I did see another car in their midst, and I get the feeling it was the Gego Big Cat Porsche, because that was running right behind them at the time. So they've managed to get going again, which is fortunate, but that's another setback for that car that they will not want. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for your donation. And everyone, let's keep them coming in, because this is a really good cause to support. Once again, we are supporting Wheelchairs for Kids with the Charity Drive 3, The Real Deal, the full name of our event. And Samuel Dieboldter, our broadcast director, in the background. You can't hear him on stream, but he's just informed me that we've passed $480 raised all up. Simply magnificent job from everybody. Thank you so much for your contributions. If you're interested in donating, don't forget you can scroll down a little bit on the Twitch stream, and you'll find the details down in the stream description. Wheelchairs for Kids, providing wheelchairs for disadvantaged and underprivileged children, and shipping them to the kids for free. That is an absolutely fantastic cause. And as a guy with a only slight physical disability myself, my right arm is not very usable due to suffering a brachial plexus injury at birth. It always makes me incredibly happy to see people supporting people with disabilities. It is simply fantastic. We ride on board with RGB Parrot at the moment as he continues to stomp on the brakes and the throttle at every opportunity, keeping up some great pace. Actually having just come out of the pits, I believe, as well. And with that pit stop, that means that all of our LMP1 competitors are on the same lap again, which is interesting to see. The Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go car just making their way into Stavelot now, and Grosjean making his way out of Bruxelles. But into the pits once more comes RGB Parrot. Now this is curious. He'd only just come out of the pit lane, so this is 2 stops within a lap of each other. I'm unsure what the exact reasons are, but maybe... it was only a short stop there for RGB Parrot. Very, very short stop. That means that Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go have just now filtered through into the lead of the race. Now this is big. It's going to be close. Out comes RGB Parrot from the pits. Grosjean is another 16 seconds behind this. So we could be seeing a pass shortly for the overall lead here, depending on how these drivers are matched. We've also got some news there in the Twitch chat from Hazza Walker. His Ethernet box died, and the problem has been fixed, so let's hope that we see Hazza out there on track very soon. Of course, he did say that the idea was for Samuel to stay out there for a while and make up as much time as possible, and then Hazza would bring the car home. So we'll see how they alter their race from this point on. There are your leaders, both in the same frame, separated by 1.3 seconds as they come into Fagnes. Just have a look at the pace difference there. Looking from the back, out of the corner of Stavelot they come, and we'll probably be looking at this Grosjean RGB Racing Porsche get larger and larger. Oh my goodness, whoa! They're making their way through some traffic here. And this is, oh, okay. Obviously a big lockup for a GT3 car up ahead. But RGB Parrot makes his way back into the lead of the race, and he's coming into the pits again! What is going on with RGB Parrot at the moment? Both in the pits, and Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go have made their way into the pits as well, I think to fix the damage that was created there. I think they collided. Multi actually pointing out that they probably collided with each other. Pit stop complete, meanwhile, for RGB Parrot. Grosjean now will filter through into the lead of the race once more. But Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go, their race has been perhaps irreparably altered by that GT3 collision and then the potential second collision with the LMP1 of RGB Parrot. Pit stop has been completed for the third place LMP1 car, and they're going to come back out onto the track about a minute behind the leaders. Goodness gracious, how this race can turn on its head. And we still have just over an hour to go in the Charity Drive 3. And the leaders are now back into the same place they were at the very start. 1-2, less than half a second apart, and leading the race. News from the Audi in TCR, meanwhile, looks like Hazza Walker is jumping back into the car this lap. So should be seeing a pit stop come in soon for Samuel McGill, and he'll hand over to Hazza for the last hour of the race. Hopefully, and my fingers are crossed, their internet holds out. It looks like there's an actual race going on here for the LMP1 lead. RGB Parrott with 3 pit stops in 3 laps has, it seems, looking for quite the advantage over his teammate Grosjean right now. The two LMP1s together coming out of Blanchimont and into the bus stop chicane. Grosjean goes defensive. Still got an hour to go, so they can't afford to get in each other's hair too much. First rule of sim racing is don't hit your teammate. It's also the second, third, fourth, and fifth rule. So they have to give each other a good amount of space here. Let's see what happens on the Kemmel Straight. And this is going to be dependent on how much hybrid boost has been used. It seems that Grosjean was really hard on the hybrid boost coming out of La Source, and that means that RGB Parrott might come back at him with a little bit more boost available coming out of Radeon, and they have to negotiate these GT3s as well. They're probably not going to face too many issues here. At least Grosjean isn't. RGB Parrott has to really put on the brakes, and that's a big lock-up for our leader. Grosjean off, and manages to avoid getting into the wall. Re-enters the track just ahead of the Radical GT3 there of Jeffrey and Grocky Crocky. Oh, lordy. The race has really entered a bit of a frenzy stage at the moment. Here is another battle. A battle that I was alluding to before. Krzysztof Cieślski getting chased down by the Milan Luca Radical here. So let's see what the half prototype, half GT3 car can do versus the Ferrari 488. Fantastic stuff there. And looks like, unless I've missed it in all of the frenzy that was going on there in LMP1, I believe Hazza Walker is now at the wheel of the Audi TCR car. Got some traffic in their own class, it seems, here. No, actually, it's all for position. My goodness. So, Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan, they are right in the midst of this fight too. Side by side with Milan and Luca, but hard on the brakes through Blanchimont. That's going to make things difficult. Oh, no. They've spun. Big contact from behind. Jeffrey and Grocky Crocky ran right into the back of them. And I can't say I blame them. The Jeffrey and Grocky Crocky evidently has, though. They've just given them a drive-through penalty for that incident. And I mean, I don't know what to make of that. Like, I understand Race Control's position. It was clearly a big hit from behind, and they probably could have afforded to slow down, but it was at one of the fastest corners on the track. And Dan got hard on the brakes there, on the inside of the corner. He was way down on speed. And I don't know if there was much that the Radical could have done. Either way, Race Control's decision is final, and the drive-through penalty has been assigned. Grosjean, meanwhile, back into the lead. RGB Parrott falls back into second place. The drive-through's been taken for the Radical involved in that big incident, that three-way battle between our second, third, and fourth GT3s that unfortunately didn't last very long and ended in disaster. Halfway to target, keep the hype train going, says Sam with another $11 donation there. Thank you so much for your support. We're getting ever closer to our goal here. Would be fantastic to see us crack 800 by the end, but there's only an hour to go here in the race. So get your donations in. Now, there goes the pit stop for McGill and Hazza Walker. So I was mistaken. McGill was at the wheel, but now Hazza has taken over the car and is making his way out of the pits as we speak. Or at least making his way to the end of the pit lane where he'll take his long pit. So there's the gap. Meanwhile, GT3 battle. Have a look at how close this is between Cieślski and Milan. Defensive there from the Ferrari on the way into the bus stop chicane. The Radical tries to draw alongside and Cieślski overshoots. It's going to be a big over-under here from the Radical if he can make it work, but he's going to have to go for the inside for La Source here. It's the only way he could possibly do it, but will he want to? Because there's a really long straight line section here. Once again, too deep for Cieślski, but the Radical stays behind. They know that they've got a very long straight coming up. They can take advantage of the slipstream there. Let's see what it's like for the Radical through Rouge and Radillon. They don't even lift. That's amazing. The Radical doesn't lift through Rouge and Radillon. And they draw alongside. It's going to be outside line here. Coming into Lecombe. Will they be able to do it? Cieślski is on the brakes at the exact same time and tries his best. But harder into the corner there for the Radical. They are through. And that is second place in GT3 secured. For now, at least. Well, that's a $20 donation from Anonymous. Thank you so much for your support. We 100% appreciate it. Magnificent stuff. Let's keep this going. This battle is certainly not over. Looks like Christoph is really giving the Radical a run for its money through the middle section of the course. Of course, we've seen most of the GT3s lifting through Rouge and Radillon, but that Radical might be potentially a tiny bit down on straight line speed, but the sheer grip of the car, the quality of the chassis, the downforce it obviously generates, helping it through those ultra fast corners. And oh dear, Christoph going very wide there at Blanchimont and losing a bit of time there to the Radical as they go into the bus stop chicane for the God knows what time. God knows what, I suppose. Under 55 minutes remaining. And we see now this battle will be hard fought to the very end, but let's see what this Radical does through Rouge and Radillon this time. Christoph, meanwhile, just a slight lift. Stays in touch with the Radical. And is in the slipstream. This is going to be big. The roles have been reversed. Now the Radical has the inside and pushes it. Even though, you know, Christoph had the run and was ahead when they got to the braking zone. Man, the Milan and Luca entry is supreme on the brakes. Through the Bruxelles corner now, a little bit of traffic ahead. Looks like that's the Soggy Bread and Arthur entry, which we were told recently in the Twitch chat Arthur has been driving solo for this race, so props to him for sticking it out this long. They got a TCR in the midst of it here as well. That's Sven Versteeg, it seems, in the Hyundai i30. One of them makes their way past him. The Radical is forced to lift off a little bit. This might give another small advantage to Krzysztof Cieślski that he needs. Has to stay behind. The Radical goes up the inside at Stavilo, and Krzysztof is like, hello, I'll have me some of this. But be careful. Give each other some space through the corner. They stay within half a second in spite of all of that. Good driving from all three of them to give each other space. It's one of the big talents of multi-class racing that you need if you want to make it in this style of racing. So, the battle continues anew. Once again, Krzysztof with a slightly better exit from the bus stop chicane. It seems the Radical is having some problems there on the exit. And Krzysztof has a big look there, tries to psych him out. But it's not going to happen for the time being. With how long the Kemmel Straight is here at Spa, you'd be silly to go up the inside at La Source. Especially when these cars are so evenly matched. Another slight lift for Krzysztof. He's even hitting the brakes a little on the way through Raidillon. And then he's not as close this time, but still has the benefit of the slipstream. He will get closer. Draft up to the rear of the Radical in the braking zone. Very late on the brakes for Lecombe. Late apexes it and keeps the pace. This is really good driving from both of these guys. Supreme driving. This is one of the more entertaining battles I've seen around Spa. And I have commentated many a race at this circuit in other sims, so that's really saying something. I'm really having a lot of fun watching this. So through Pouhon and up to Fagnes. Is there anything that Krzysztof Cieślski can pull out of the bag? I'm just watching with bated breath at this point. Just watching for any tiny change in the relative positioning of these cars. It seems that the Radical gets a much better exit onto the Blanchimont section of the racetrack, which is effectively a straight in these cars because you don't need to lift until you get to the bus stop chicane. But Cieślski starts to gain on him a little bit as they actually get to the braking zone. So I think the reality of this is Krzysztof probably driving the wheels off that Ferrari to keep it in range of the Radical through the medium speed and slower corners. He's looking rather close at the moment. On board with the Radical. Do they lift? No, they do not. Flat chat through one of the most spectacular corners in motorsport, and they've got the LMP1 leader, I believe. Yes, Grosjean coming up behind them there, as RGB Parrot has lost quite some time there. The gap's now out to 30 seconds for the overall lead, and Grosjean makes his way through on Krzysztof Cieślski and forces his way past Milan and Luca there. They ran wide in Malmedy to let him through, and now the gap is back to what it was, roughly. Boy, oh boy, this battle is probably going to continue for quite some time. I think it's all going to come down to the final pit stop, because both of these cars still have yet to make their last scheduled pit stop of the race. Oh, a bit too wide in Pouhon there for the Ferrari. But he'll undoubtedly claw that back. So coming up now on the Soggy Bread and Arthur entry. What will happen here? Obviously, this Porsche in front of them will be getting blue flags. But the car driven by Milan and Luca, they're probably thinking, well, what do we do at this stage? Lack of straight line speed evident. And Christoph goes for it in the braking zone around the outside. Can he hold it? Oh, he almost did. The cars make contact, and now they're side by side on the exit of the bus stop chicane. It's gotten a tiny bit ugly in this fight. The Porsche now not a part of the picture. Christoph hard on the brakes into La Source, trying to hold it, but the Radical reigns supreme once again on the exit, but Christoph has gotten a slightly better run out of the corner. Don't go side by side into Eau Rouge, boys. This could get ugly very quickly. Oh. Christoph doing the very mindful thing, getting on the brakes, clearing the path there for the Radical. He's lost some time because of that, but we know that he seems to be the quicker driver here. So this battle is certainly not over. And the reason we've been looking at this fight for so long is basically the fact that it is the closest battle on track at the moment. No one is as close as these guys are. Oh, and more traffic issues there for the Radical just up ahead. Looks like fourth and GT3 having a problem there at Bruxelles. That was Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan. And now they've also had to let through the LMP1 leader, and they're having to make their way past the Cobby and Roca Scree Audi as well. Here comes Christoph around the outside, and Defanier gives just enough room to Milan and Luca, and not an inch more as they make their way through the corner. And the Ferrari is through. This is crazy. I'm absolutely loving this, and I hope you guys are too, who are tuning in. BGT 1990, I agree 100%. A mega battle between these two. But we see that the straight line speed of the Ferrari is working in its favor now. Christoph is starting to gain some time here on Milan. But the Radical definitely quicker in the corners. As you can see, the gap is back down to 0.4 of a second as they come across the start-finish line to start a new lap. 45 minutes to go in this race. And second place in GT3 by no means over. They got to be wary not to battle too hard. Oh, and that is a huge penalty there for the GT3 leader. 132 seconds stop and go for swap time. They didn't complete the procedure correctly. We'll leave that in the dust for a second, though, because the Radical is leaving the Ferrari in the dust with a great exit from Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And Shadows 1-0, who is Luca, the teammate of Milan, who is driving the Radical at the moment, saying this is so stressful. And man, I really think I feel you at the moment. If I was one of the guys driving one of these cars, I'd just be biting my nails. My fingertips would be gone. And honestly, I'm not sure where all the pace from the Ferrari came from either. Because we saw early on that that crew wasn't having the best time. But now, this is just incredible driving. Right on the bumper of the Radical as they come out of Stavelot. And the Ferrari's straight line speed will work in its favour here once again. Plus the benefit of slipstream. but attempting a pass at Blanchimont might be ill-advised here. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Forces the Radical to take the narrow line into Blanchimont and ruin the exit. But defensive from the Radical on the brakes. Who will come off the best here? More room given this time. And the Ferrari is through once more, but the Radical gets a better exit out of the bus stop chicane. How good is this? Here we are. Okay, slow in, fast out from the Radical. Christoph had to check up on the exit a little bit. But more power down means that he maintained the gap. But once they get out of this sequence of corners... Oh, a lift from the Radical. A rare lift from the Radical. Maybe the tyres are going off. Who knows? But more slipstream. And is the Ferrari lifting a little there? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Hard on the brakes for the Radical. And round the outside into Le Combe. They are through once again. I know that we're giving these two cars an awful lot of airtime at the moment, but frankly, this is the closest battle on track and by far the most entertaining that we've seen so far. And did I just see... seeing people mentioning a drive-through for the Ferrari? No, for the Radical. Yeah. They did get a drive-through earlier. And if it weren't for that, who knows how far up they would be. Indeed, the Radical was the car that got the drive-through penalty for cutting. Still, second place in GT3 is nothing to sneeze at. The gap has extended a little bit. And there we go. Into the lane there for the Milan and Luca Radical. Now, is this the drive-through that they were talking about? I get the feeling it might be. Saying that they barely cut Raidillon. So, that is the conclusion of the battle there. The Radical drives through the pits. Well, I think we can still be thankful for what was one of the finest sim racing battles I have ever seen. We'll see what kind of time they can make up here on the Ferrari now, because it's 10 seconds, and there might still be a pit stop to come. Meanwhile, 40 minutes left in the race, and we zero in on the Alfa Romeo TCR entry. But still holding on to third in class. There was another change in position between them and the McGill-Hazza-Walker entry. So, we'll see now what Hazza will be able to do in that Audi as we now bring in his teammate, Samuel McGill, finally joining us. And, well, last time we talked, Samuel, it was very short. You had to jump back in the car after Hazza's internet issues, but now he's back in the car, and it seems still a little quicker than the Alfa Romeo you guys are chasing.
Yeah, he's doing really well right now. I mean, very unfortunate with the drive-through, or the disconnects even, because, you know, we were in a great position. It's sort of the first time Harry has ever done something like this. But, you know, there are issues with every online race, so we we've got ours out of the way, and we've just got to keep pushing now. He's doing really well.
Yeah, that he is. So, a race obviously marred by technical issues, but I think in a way that's par for the course. It's one of those ways in which sim racing can be equivalent to real life racing. I mean, in a real life endurance race, you can have a bearing go, or you can lose a cylinder or something like that sets you back quite a bit. And in sim racing, it's internet dramas that can really put you back. It's like blowing a head gasket.
Yeah, this is very true, and it's not about the internet, it's the way you bounce back from the internet and carry on. And the fact he's been more than willing to then get straight back in the car and give it another shot, it really shows his dedication to sort of the racing and all that.
Yeah, it really does. How much practice time and setup work have you guys been putting into this race? Because obviously, you know, charity events like this, they're ones that, you know, you have a varying level of preparation for throughout the field. Some people just turn up and drive. Others put an awful lot of effort in. Where do you and Hazza sit?
Yeah, well, I did a bit more practice than he did. I mean, I developed the setup for the weekend. And I've just been helping him get along. And if I'm honest, he thought the race was next week rather than this week, so he sort of delayed starting practice. So it was it was very rushed from his end. But, you know, he's done a fantastic job to be able to jump in the car and get up to speed quite quickly.
Yeah, indeed. His last lap was a 2-minute 37.783 versus a 2:42 for the Alfa Romeo that is a minute and a half ahead of you at the moment. There's only 36 minutes left in the race, so it's going to be very touch and go as to whether or not you guys can catch up. Do you think it's possible?
Well, we've already seen with our disconnect, anything can happen. I mean, it will be a very big asking, but, you know, still 36 minutes left, anything can happen. We're still fine for that podium.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll let you get back to helping your teammate out in the spotter's chair, and thanks very much for joining us, Samuel. Really appreciate it, and best of luck to you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Samuel McGill there. Really great performance from him in the car, having to jump straight back in and take the car for another hour or so than he intended. So to have that car be where it is, yes, it is the last running TCR, but still P4 in class and decidedly quicker than the current P3 car. So we'll see what they can do. And on the other side of the coin, we'll see what the Alfa Romeo is able to do as well. Two drivers who are obviously looking at a podium and wanting to defend that. It's going to be, I think, really good for Franco Rizzuti and Romano Dvorak if they're able to hold on to that. And that's the beauty of racing, really. The fact that you can go for... you can have a story for anyone, really, and everyone has something to play for. Little Alfa Romeo that could. Right now, on the brakes into the bus stop chicane and into the pits. Okay, so 90 seconds is the gap back to the McGill and Hazza entry. This is going to be a pit stop for the Rizzuti and Dvorak car. There's McGill, just coming out of Bruxelles. The engine is not off in the Alfa Romeo. I had a little bit of a what on earth moment in the pits. Wondering potentially if this is going to be a driver swap for the Alfa Romeo car. If it is, then they might have to do a long pit. I'm not too sure if they've taken their long pit yet. Meanwhile, the Audi, one that we have been following for quite some time. pit stop, meanwhile, for the GT3 leader. And this is pretty large. They've taken that 132-second stop and go that was assigned to them by race control some time ago. And look who's right behind them. It's Krzysztof Cieślski in the Ferrari. 1.3 seconds behind. So this Ferrari, depending on whether or not they still have a pit stop to take, could be looking at a GT3 win here. Really quite amazing, the stories that end up eventuating from a race like this. Ooh. Nino, $60 donation that has just come in there. Thank you so much, Nino. You wanted to get yourself something to eat, but you forgot because the battle was so good. That's amazing. Yeah, that was absolutely enthralling. Here we go. Now the Ferrari is involved in a battle with a BMW. And the lights are on. The sun is lower in the sky. It's still very bright out there, but it's just past 6:30 in sim time, as you can see. And with that pit stop completed for the Rizzuti and Dvoracek Alfa Romeo, it means that Samuel McGill and Hazza Walker are now back on the podium in the TCR class. But we keep our attention here on the GT3 lead, which is now a BMW versus Ferrari competition. And the amount of pace that this Ferrari's been showing lately, they could give the BMW boys a good race here. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled, because it's been 2 pit stops so far for the Cieślski Ferrari, who just gets into the gravel trap out of La Source. So that's going to be some time lost there to the BMW. Once again, through Radeon, lift, and even a little tap of the brakes, it seems. And that's even more time lost. Seems that Schnitzelbaumer and Nijuez are definitely right back on it after that stop-go. But the big thing to think about is the fact that the GT3 class has its top 6 cars all on the same lap. And we still have half an hour of the race to go. So after 2.5 hours of racing, we still don't really have a big idea as to who could really win that GT3 class. Wow. And I'm seeing donation as well, apparently a very generous donation. Roy Salvadori, $201. This is insane. Thank you so much for that. He says, someone outbid me, not cool. Actually, it is because it's for charity. Awesome stuff. Well, we're coming up to 60% of our donation goal with 29 minutes remaining in the race. So let's try and get close to that $800 total, or $1,000 total. I see. We're actually at $781. Sorry, the donation ticker is taking its time updating, so we are getting very close. We're only $220 away from our $1,000 donation goal, so let's keep it going. If you just tuned into the stream, scroll down a bit, and there's a donate to charity section in the stream description. Go for it. Thank you so much for your generosity, everybody. It's fantastic. What's also fantastic is RGB Parrot's pace as of late. Another fastest lap, it seems. 1 minute 56.261. But we see that Grosjean is 24 seconds behind and is currently quicker at the moment. We're just coming out onto Stavelot and the flat-out run to Blanchimont as the leader makes his way out of the bus stop chicane. So we'll compare lap times this time around. 2:01.757 that time around for RGB Parrot, encountering some traffic along the way, having to back off, but have a look at the acceleration of that Porsche. It is incredible. The 919, one of the most successful LMP1 cars of all time, and it shows with just how amazingly quick it is. And Grosjean sets a 1:59.525 that time around, so continuing to bring the gap down for the lead. It sits at about 23-24 seconds as things stand right now. And I'll tell you one thing, as we check out that very striking LMP1 car making its way around the circuit. If you were a fan of that fight between the Radical and the Ferrari earlier, somehow I get the feeling we might be seeing part 2 of that, because Milan, after taking that drive-through penalty, has absolutely smashed the pace here, and Cecilski comes into the pits. Okie dokes. And this is a pit stop. So unfortunately, it looks like the battle will not have a part 2. Pit stop for the Ferrari. Unclear, though, on whether the Radical needs to make another pit stop, though. Okay, so there was no driver swap once again in the Ferrari. And no long pit this time. So out they come, and the Glickenhaus of Malte and Pai on track at the moment, just coming into La Source. And if you look off in the distance right about now, you should see a little dot that is the Ferrari making its way up the hill. Maybe just missed it there. But the gap between them is 11.8 seconds. And now, it looks like the Radical is now looking potentially at the lead of GT3. Because the Nyquist and Schnitzelbaumer BMW still lapping as they have for the majority of the race, and still being the rough pace setters of the class at this stage. 2 minute 20.7 was their last lap versus a 2:21.4 for the Milan-driven Radical behind them. So we'll see what that Radical can do to try and bring that gap down here in the last 25 minutes of the race. They do have a bit of traffic ahead, a fellow Radical that might be able to help them with a bit of slipstream. The Jeffrey and Grocky Crocky car that we saw being given a drive-through by race control just a little earlier. There is that car. Currently in 11th overall, and just under a minute away, if they can make up the time, of passing the TCR leader for position. We see P3 in LMP1 going through on them. It seems quite a bit of damage on their windscreen. Yeah, I can see that there's actually, it's actually broken, that windscreen, I think, on the Jeffrey Grocky Crocky Radical, and got to take it easy here. Not quite willing to lift off and let their fellow Radical through, but, well, they'll send themselves off the track, unfortunately. And the Milan Luca Radical will go on through. Has lost some further time to the GT3 leader. Okay, that's obviously a troll. Reese Gardner, $120. I'm Reese Gardner. My name is Reese Gardner, saying, I hacked your credit card, sorry not sorry. Very funny. Oh, goodness gracious. Regardless, thank you very much for your very generous donation to this course. I mean, I'm amazed that the donations are just coming in thick and fast this much, you know? There are people donating triple-digit amounts here, which is incredible for this race. We really do have the deepest of gratitude to all of you. That's brought us up to 90% of our goal here, $900.98. How good is that? Let's keep it going. Focusing on the Glickenhaus at the moment. The number 40 has 12.4 seconds to make up on the Ferrari that just took what we presume to be their final pit stop of the race. And is looking pretty quick. This is going to be the first actual quick lap for the Ferrari on this stint, and they're coming up to the end of the lap now, so we'll be able to get a reading on what their pace is like versus the Glickenhaus, that is continuing to just plug away here to try and get a class podium. So the Sisilski Ferrari crosses the line, and it's a 222.247. Let's see what the Multi-Hinch and Pi entry is able to do on this lap. Across the line they come, and it's a 223.0. So not the quickest time, and 7/10 lost. However, it's an endurance race. It's not over till it's over. Seems to me that TCR, which was one of the most hotly contested classes, it's now looking like a pretty cruisy victory for Sven Versteeg at the moment. He is coming up to lap the Audi of McGill and Hazza, as we have another donation that has just come in from Anonymous. And interestingly, the amount has been listed as 0. I'm not too sure what the deal is there. Mika Howells in Twitch chat. I honestly couldn't tell you if the Glickenhaus has to pit. I'm not too sure when. Okay, I'm hearing that they should be good because it's been 13 laps since their last pit stop, and GT3 cars can pretty easily make it like an hour on a stop. Overall leader is pitted, meanwhile. RGB Parrot making their way into the pits, and Grosjean reassumes the race lead. Thanks very much, Multi, for the confirmation that your car does not have to pit. So that's the overall lead back down to about 2 seconds as we start entering the dying stages of this race. it's really good to see the amount of drivers active in the Twitch chat as well and giving us an insight into what their races are like. Mika, of course, the same Mika driving the Mika Seth BMW earlier in the race. Seth has now taken over. And oh no, I completely missed that. That's a huge mistake there for RGB Parrot. Off into the gravel trap at Puon. Hopefully there's no floor damage from that. Otherwise, he will be in a spot of bother, I'd have to say. So, that is the LMP1 lead back out to 6 seconds. But RGB is definitely working on that gap. Brought it back down to 5.5 on the way into the bus stop. So is driving that car incredibly hard. With 17 minutes still to go in the race, this could be an absolute photo finish between the teammates and overall leaders. Drive-through taken, meanwhile, for the second place car in TCR, driven by Viggo Ketelaar and Plug. And also for P1 in TCR, a drive-through for Sven Versteeg. But that is not going to mean anything for Sven. He is leading the class by quite some margin. Lots of puffs of smoke being the telltale sign of a TCR car in front of you. As RGB Parrot makes his way through on the Ketelaar and Plug entry. We're definitely seeing evidence of the sun getting ever lower in the sky. There's even shadows happening through Puon now. And of course that will affect the way you approach your braking points. For the longest time in sim racing, when there's been like static day and night, you really had all you really had to do was memorize your braking points, and they would change. But with day-night transitions, first in the original R-Factor, and then GTR2, and then iRacing, and now Assetto Corsa as well, thanks to the Soul plugin, it really changes the way you drive a long race like this, because the shadows change. You know, your former braking points might now be in darkness, and you might not be able to pick them as well as you used to. So you really got to drive the road in front of you. Getting some news from the Mika Seth BMW. They are currently taking a pit stop for fuel. So they have to, they still had to keep themselves in the running somehow and have enough fuel to make it to the end. They have put on soft tires at the end of the race, and I think that also explains why RGB Parrot is able to make up so much time here on Grosjean. He has also fitted the soft tire. Grosjean is on the medium tire. And you know, if you're only pitting with half an hour to go, you might as well go hell for leather. Make sure your car has as much pace as possible. A little bit of an awkward incident with the Porsche there, and Grosjean is running a bit slow there. Not too sure what the deal is here. You know, it's always difficult to tell with teammates racing together in an endurance race like this. When a position change happens, I always wonder, is it genuine? Was it a mistake from the car in front, or was it coordinated? Was it more of a, okay mate, I'll let you go here, I'll run behind you for a bit? I have no idea. I am just as in the dark as you dear viewers are. Thank you very much, Luca, for the compliment. I really appreciate it. It's tough doing a 3-hour race solo commentary, but I think I've been doing it for long enough that I could make it work. So the LMP1 leaders then. Separated by half a second. Will there be any change of position at all here on the Kemmel Straight? It looks like Grosjean is gaining just a little bit, and don't want to put it too much in the grass there, otherwise you'll lose a lot of pace. But seems that RGB is holding station very nicely and taking a little bit easier through the first part of Les Combes, which is benefiting him on the exit. We also want to say a big hello to Davide Bolognesi. He is the creator of Real Penalty, which is the system that the administrators are using to run this race and assign penalties. Really powerful plugin, this Real Penalty, and really want to thank Davide for his work. Really allows events like this in Assetto Corsa to be run in a professional manner, so a big thanks to you. Have a look at the amount of time made up there by Grosjean. I think just dumping the hybrid. RGB Parrot looking over his shoulder at his teammate, who will take victory, who still has enough to pull out of the box any rabbits in the hat in the final 11 minutes of the Charity Drive 3. This is the question. It's all about tyres. RGB Parrot is on the soft tyre. Grosjean is on the medium. The soft tyre is quicker, but it won't last as long. So, is RGB Parrot in tyre saving mode at the moment? Did he absolutely slam it to get back into the lead and is now just managing the gap? They have a GT3 car to negotiate. That is the Cobby and Rockus driven Audi there. Oh no! Oh, very wide at Les Combes. Both of our LMP1 leaders go off and they hold position, amazingly enough. But here we go. Here's the defense. Oh, side by side. RGB Parrot has to hold the inside. The soft tyre working in his favour there. Grosjean can do nothing to hold it around the outside. But don't go defensive there. Did he just let him through? I don't know. Dumps the hybrid and goes straight back past. Are they putting on a show for us, I wonder? We've got some more traffic to come up on. That is the fourth place TCR car. The Rizzuti and Dvoracek Alfa Romeo. The orange dot that is getting progressively bigger in your view right now. And they blast past him. Once again, hybrid power dumped on the exit there by Grosjean, but it seems lifting off a little bit. Hybrid power in the Porsche 919 is regenerated by the turbo spinning and also by regenerative braking. So it's always generating more hybrid power, but you don't want to dump it all at once because you won't have anything to work with for the rest of the lap. It really is amazing to see, like, you know, the amount of power that the hybrid system gives these cars. Look at that. Look at that. That is Grosjean on the hybrid, and he's going for it. But then a slight response from RGB Parrot. The leaders go side by side through a Rouge and Raidillon. Don't usually want to do that, but they made it work. And right on the back now. RGB Parrot's got to be careful here with Grosjean almost making contact with him in the braking zone. Side by side through Lacombe. Oh, that was so close to making contact. They're playing a dangerous game here. If the two teammates make contact and damage each other enough, then they will lose most, if not all, of that gap to the one other car in their class, the Nathan Vaughan and Evelyn Go entry, which we haven't checked in on in a while. They are currently 2.2 laps down on these guys. So yeah, they go. The Glickenhaus goes slow into Pouon to let them through and continues on their way. I love views like this. It's kind of an over-the-shoulder camera, but the way Le Mans prototypes are constructed, I really enjoy the framing and the view this gives of just how quick the cars are. Look at that, 200 k's an hour through that corner and not lifting one bit on the throttle. Big slipstream there. You can tell that there's not much hybrid power left for RGB Parrot there. Grosjean was able to make up a little bit more, but you see that he's lifting off in the braking zones there, potentially to save a bit of fuel towards the end. Who knows? How good are they on fuel? 6.5 minutes to go. Getting some news from the director. RGB Parrot is 16 laps into the stint, so should be fine for fuel, and Grosjean should be as well. But that's not stopping either of them from absolutely going for it. Side by side, through Arouge and Radillon again, and they make contact, and that's what I was afraid of. They better hope that that wasn't too damaging to them. They've got 2 classes worth of traffic to cut through here. The TCO, oh my goodness, no. Grosjean has just taken out the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan Porsche, and immediately an RGB Parrot gets a drive-through for cutting. And another donation coming in, $20 from Frederick Becht. Thank you so much for that one. Says, come on lads, let's hit the goal. We can raise $1,000. We certainly can. But you don't have much time. You got 5 minutes left. Get your donations in. So, whoa, that was huge. Big fight there, and Grosjean running wide into Fagné. Both cars now hitting big trouble there. They got a little too leery with each other, our LMP1 leaders. On board with Grosjean, it seems that the steering's pretty straight. But I don't know if the same could be said for RGB Parrot after that very heavy contact with the Captain Foxy and Big Boy Dan GT3. Both of them come into the pits. And, of course, that's a drive-through for RGB Parrot and likely damage repair for Grosjean. Actually, seems both of them. That's interesting. Oh, has Grosjean overshot his pit box? Reversing in the... What is going on? That's odd. Okay, so slight damage repair done. And it looks like the drive-through has been served for RGB Parrot, but he decided to stop, move back, and then come back out again, potentially so that the teammates could stay close together. Ah, and big news from the Mika Seth battle. 219.839 for the Mika Seth BMW there. That is the fastest lap in the GT3 class. Big congratulations to those two. Magnificent job. Oh no, it's all gone wrong again for Grosjean. Has to Make a 3-point turn there. Another drive-through for cutting for the Niehuis and Schnitzelbaumer entry. And they're only like 25 seconds ahead of the Milan Luca entry. So this is interesting here for Grosjean, because you can't do a drive-through and make a pit stop at the same time. So there's a chance that he might have to come back in again, and that could really alter the gap for the lead. Drive-through's been taken for the lead GT3 car, and the Milan Luca car is now 11 seconds off the lead. If there's one more penalty or any kind of trouble for the GT3 leader, then we could see that fight eventuate. Change for position for the lead. Grosjean moves back into P1. Now, will we see them come in? Oh, here we go. RGB Parrot for the win. Let's go, King, says Amber with a $2 donation. Thank you so much for your generosity there. Grosjean, meanwhile, comes back into the pits to take that other drive-through penalty. And RGB Parrot resumes the race lead by quite some margin. This time, Grosjean gets through the pits without stopping and has served the drive-through penalty. So now the gap for the lead is 10.6 seconds. Let's see what we can do. 9.5, 9.4. Now RGB Parrot and Grosjean are both on the soft tyres. So they will be driving the wheels off those cars, and Grosjean will be driving the car straight into the barrier. RGB Parrot, my apologies. Oh no. There we go. Grosjean moves back into the lead of the race. It has all gone off here right at the end. We have less than a minute to go. 45 seconds, and oh, it's all gone wrong again for Parrot. What on earth has happened to the number one right at the end? That car is not looking fun to drive right now. Grosjean, meanwhile, dealing with some TCR traffic up ahead. The gap is decreasing. 20 seconds to go. As things stand, next lap will be the final lap of the race. It's 3 hours plus 1 lap. That is the official race distance. They could be working towards getting a photo finish. We'll see, though. We'll see. Meanwhile, it looks like... well, it doesn't look like there's many other battles going on track at the moment. This is the closest we've got at the moment. Here we go, then. Leader on final lap. Okay, this is going to be the finish. The timer hits 0. And it is going to be a photo finish. Grosjean and RGB Parrot crossing the line together to end the charity drive 3. Goodness gracious. And Vaughn and Go cross the line with him. That's all of our LMP1 class accounted for. And the celebrations will begin. I didn't even know you could do donuts in the 919. Really well done. Look at those smoke effects. Excellent. That'd be Custom Shaders Patch, I believe, doing that. Meanwhile, we do have our GT3 leader coming up to the line just about. This BMW has been nothing short of supreme throughout this race. Despite their penalties, despite their issues, they have been far and away the class of the field in the GT3 class. That takes nothing away, though, from the Mika Seth duo with that 219.8. It looks like a 2:19.279 for the Cobby and Rockus re-entry in the Audi. So it looks like fastest lap in the class will go to them. But coming across the line now, the Rotary Sim Racing duo, Cedric Nijuez and Alexis. Fantastic job from the both of them. BMW to the end. And Milan and Luca, what a drive from these two in the Radical. To second in class after a titanic battle with Krzysztof Cieślski, who was going to come home just about 20 seconds behind them. Average pace at the start of the race and absolutely turned it up in the mid to late phase. Bravo to both of those drivers that came home. Oh, there we go. And guess who has brought us over the total? It's event organizer Martron, who donated $80 to bring us up over the total, I believe. So, if I'm not mistaken, we have succeeded in raising $1,000 for charity. $1,000.05, I believe. Oh no, $1,005. Sorry, I think a slight communication error between myself and our director Samuel Dieboldter. But that is amazing. We ended up doing it, and we fade out to the results screen. What a magnificent race, and what a magnificent set of donations from all of you. Just brilliant job from all of the drivers as well. I have to say, it was a real honor to be a part of this race, and I'm definitely interested in being a part of it in the future. Just magnificent. All the GGs in the Twitch chat. Well done to everybody who got to the finish. Big shout out to the drivers who got involved in those big battles, really got their, put their backs into it and made things fantastic, made this race what it was. Really highly entertaining race, and raising $1,000 for charity. There will be some incident investigations, so the final results of the race will be posted tomorrow. We do have the Charity Drive Discord down in the Twitch description if you are interested in knowing what the final results were. But a big shout out to everybody who was a part of this event, and the admin team are certainly grateful for everyone's support and for everyone racing well throughout this 3 hours. So in the end, with everyone coming through, we want to say goodbye from the Charity Drive. Thanks very much, everyone, for watching. My name's Reese Gardner, otherwise known as Southpaw Racer, and want to give a big shout out to Samuel Dieboldter behind the scenes as well, McLama. Thank you so much for all of your hard work, mate. And thanks very much to Martron and the admin team for all their work as well. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.